Hi everybody, we're back. Frame Trap. Guys, I've got the best news of all. We have mics now, so there should be no weird audio issues. We have a black tablecloth. That's the kind of production values that you can expect on the show. We have new posters. We're changing up the look a little bit. You're getting everything. This is all for you guys. Don, if you could flash production values on the screen, I would really appreciate it. You guys might be wondering why Huber and Brad are here. I mean, I love them, but you might be wondering, hey, you said this was
right?
Yeah, you said this was supposed to be a rotating cast, and it is. But I wanted Don, you can be on the show anytime. I meant Bloodworth and Ian to be on the show, but they were busy this week, and that's going to happen sometimes. I think, especially with a bi-weekly podcast, schedules are going to be a little weird. And Huber and Brad were kind enough to fill their spots, but we do have a super special guest, Brandon Jones.
I got nothing better to do.
Okay. All right.
Super special.
No, it's a rotating cast. It's just rotating very slowly. You know, it's a gradual, slow rotating process.
Cool.
Brandon,
it's gonna take me another month to get out of the end chair. You know, it's just like one at a time.
You try to move away from me as far as possible. That's the goal when you're rotating out. Let's have you start off. What have you been playing? I honestly have no idea other than Pokemon. You're doing that wonderful
I have been
series.
playing a lot of Pokemon. I want to save the Pokemon talk for the Pokemon show that Kyle and I are doing. But I have been playing lots of Red. Red's like brushing my teeth now. Red's like...
Brad, I'm going to ask that you say the full title.
Pokemon Red, excuse me.
Oh, I think you meant Red Dead Redemption.
I was confused.
This is getting double confusing.
I've been playing Pokemon Red Dead Redemption.
Minor spoiler, is Kyle mad that you're playing red and not blue?
I don't think... He never really said either way.
Cool.
He kind of left it up to me. And I talked to Chad about it, and then I had a revelation, which was... Red's in our logo, so I was like, oh, Red.
Quick question. I know Kyle does not like Charizard, and you picked Charmander. Was that done on purpose? I have to know.
Not to piss him off, because Charizard spews fire.
Okay.
End of story.
Got it.
Cool.
As a Bowser fan, I'm sure you can appreciate that, Hubert.
Every time starting Pokemon.
My personal game playing is pretty abysmal right now, because I'm so focused on video production for Easy Allies, not that that's an excuse ever. Played Primal a lot, but finished that a little bit ago. But that was the last major console game that I was committed to.
Tell me about Primal.
Primal's fun. Primal would probably be a 7 if I was going to review it. I have no ill will towards Primal. It's one of those games that pleased me. That I thank, if I was to meet the game makers, I would shake all of their hands and thank you for making Primal. I like games that are about survival. I like games that kind of throw me out in the wilderness. I've always wanted to play Don't Starve, and I have it for that reason. So there were a lot of things in the game that spoke to me. It is not as good as 3 or 4 or any, or even Blood Dragon. It had the ending was so anticlimactic. It's not even funny. But I don't know what I mean. It's caveman times. What do you expect? The ending, they all just cheer. You're like, all right, I won. But building up a bow with your bare hands or something about that will never get old for me. So I am grateful for the time I spent with Primal, but would probably not recommend that to most people.
You made me think of something that I want to touch on just briefly. We don't have to go into a huge discussion about it, but a lot of times when I see coverage on games, you said, it's not as good as 3, it's not as good as 4. I'm not very familiar with Primal, so I can't tell you one way or the other, but it always makes me mad when something is still really, really good, but maybe it's not as good that it's just completely trashed. I feel like the sort of Sevens of the worlds, the Bs of the gaming world are getting snuffed out, where it either has to completely blow your mind or it doesn't exist. And that, to me, that is a very binary video game world that I don't want to live in. And I just kind of want to gauge your guys' thoughts on that, if you sort of agree with that sentiment, or how do you see it?
The reason I love Primal even more than Far Cry 4 is because, to me, Far Cry 4 is devoid of any original ideas. And Far Cry Primal, caveman times, you're raising all these bears. It's so unique. And, Ark Survival is out, or Early Access or whatever. There aren't a lot of caveman games. So for me, I think that part of the game should be praised, that it is an original setting and... an original game. Do
you think these sort of original games that maybe aren't perfectly polished or totally refined in a lot of different ways are kind of going away? Or do you think there's still plenty of them around?
I think the indie scene is full of original ideas. I think that's how they survive and thrive.
But to me, sometimes I like seeing something that's really big budget that isn't just made by one guy. Not that can't be amazing. I mean, Stardew Valley is that thing. But I always come back to Dragon's Dogma, right? Where that is a really weird thing that had a lot of money thrown at it from a big company. Those games get me super excited. Yeah. So, not to interrupt you, Brandon, but please, what else have you been
Well,
playing?
that's. I mean, isn't that the podcast?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
One of
interrupt
us
each
throw
other.
something out,
Yeah,
and then
absolutely.
I mean, I'd love Brad to chime in on the next one I'm playing. No, I always play mobile games. Huber got a Hearthstone match going before. Still faithfully devoted to Galaxy of Heroes, the Star Wars
Awesome.
turn-based role-playing game for mobile.
What
Do
is
you
it
have
about
Kylo
Galaxy
Ren?
of Heroes?
It's funny.
Do you have Kylo Ren?
I don't. No.
And how many hours have you put in this
He's
game?
pretty great. Well, you gotta pick and choose. You gotta be like, I want that guy, therefore I'm gonna put in pennies into a jar
Yeah.
every day to try to get to that point.
Is
And,
Watto in it?
Watto is not in it.
Damn.
Kylo's pretty good. Kylo and Dooku are very similar, and I just went with Dooku just because it was
You
it
went
was
for
it
Dooku?
was
Awesome.
It was easier to unlock him.
Okay.
But his big thing is counter. Oh, this cracked me up. That I was like, man, it seems like Dooku counters like 100%. This is ridiculous. And I'm like, man, he counters every time. And then I look at the character, it's like 100% counter. I'm like, oh, okay.
That sounds pretty OP.
If you hit Dooku, he's hitting you back, unless you like stun him and he can't. But like,
Dooku Man Master.
he gets bonus attacks too.
One of the
It's-
strongest.
It's turn based, and like Dooku can attack 4 times. So he can you can hit him, he'll do a counter. But no, he can attack 5 because you can hit him, and then no, I'm sorry, 4. You can hit him, he can counter that, then bonus attack on the counter, then do his own attack, and then bonus attack on his regular attack.
Brandon, I have no idea where you're at right now.
I know what you're talking about.
But I love confusing Ben with an RPG, man. That's
Right.
not easy to do.
As a character, who do you like more? Like in the mythology, Dooku or Kylo Ren?
Kylo. Yeah, Kylo's just cooler.
Galaxy
Kylo's
of-
hot stuff. Kylo's GQ right now.
Is Galaxy of Heroes one of those things? Because I tried Clash of Clans and I played it for like not very long at all, like less than an hour. And I was like, this is kind of simple and boring and dumb. But I've had a bunch of people say, no. Like if you stick with it, you really do get to make interesting decisions and it kind of evolves and gets cool. Is that sort of what Galaxy of Heroes is? That what makes you stick with it? Is you
Clash is a whole nother conversation. We can talk about Clash. You need to get into a clan if you're playing Clash of Clans, because the clan battles are a mobile experience I've never had before.
This is one of the best stories you've ever
that
told
is
me.
Fascinating, because
Didn't
it's
you get like booted out or something?
I don't know if you guys remember Rocco Tomorrow, who used to work with GT.
It's a good name, Rocco.
Rocco Tomorrow. He does writes for baseball. He's actually a big baseball journalist. Cool. Rocco Tomorrow listened to a podcast I was on, I believe it was GT Time, and I mentioned that I was playing Clash of Clans, and so he brought me into his clan, serious clan, like one of the top 100 Clash of clans. So they were very serious, and they would have a war every week. And one day I missed the war, and he sent me a text and was like, if you weren't my friend, I would have booted you automatically. But because you're my friend, I need you to never do this again if you want to be back in. And I was like, this is probably a good time to back out. I'll back out. And it's still on my phone. It still stares at me every day. It's like the Animal Crossing memory card. It's just like, help us. Like no one's paying attention to the clan.
Brandon, you made me think of a story when you said like it was one of the top clans. Before I interned at GT, I worked at a video game store, a mom and pop place, and I've said that many times, but I would always get the type of people that you get to come into a video game store. Like all the stereotypes are true sometimes, and I remember like Halo 4 was coming out, and we get people coming in. And they'd be like, hey, I want to pre-order this game, which is a totally normal thing to say. And then immediately after that, they'd be like, yeah, I'm one of the best players in the world. Or I think it was like Cataclysm or something was coming out. And this happened, I think there were 2 different guys that came in and pre-ordered World of Warcraft Cataclysm. And they were like, I would like to pre-order this game. And you go and you're like messing with stuff. And they're like, yeah, I'm in one of the best guilds in A. And you're like, I don't care. What are you trying to prove to me? I'm just taking your order.
They gotta brag to someone, dude.
Can I tell you how I went up to 6-year-old the other day?
Yes.
So I'm at a nice my nerd book club at a friend's house. We're sitting in the backyard, and one of the kids of the group is 6 years old, and he's way into DS. So every now and then we can completely have an honest conversation about like all the stuff that he's playing. He might be 7 or 8, but he's just going by me on a tricycle, and he's like, "Hey, I finally broke 100 street passes." And I was like, "Whoa, dude, congratulations!" I'm like, "That's really cool, actually. Like for a kid getting out, as much as you do, like that's great. I don't know how many of your friends have 3DS. Like, cool." And he shouldn't have asked, but he was like, "How many do you have?" And I'm like, "Oh, dude, I have over 1,000. Like I have like 1,600 or something. Because of E3, I go to Disneyland all the time. Like I go to big events, where I'm like constantly at street passes." And the look that just washed over his face, like, what? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, okay. So like, go back to talking with the group, take all the sips of beer, and then he like comes back again around the tricycle, and he's like, I have 200. I'm like, oh, cool, okay. I love just like the correction.
Yeah.
Like, wait, no.
I can't believe he did that. This poor
That's
little
awesome.
kid.
Yes, I felt bad. I'm like,
He's got something to.
I'm not trying to one
reach
up you,
towards.
but I just you asked.
Brendan, do you have anything else you've been playing?
Well, yeah, I mean, specifically, we're talking about microtransactions a little bit. I mean, I guess it's kind of where we were going with Clash of Clans. Like, you know, you are fairly versed in microtransactions, and I really
These rumors are exaggerated.
I really like how Galaxy does, because it's all about the characters. You know, you want them, and they do a good job of where you play Clash of Clans or where you play Galaxy of Heroes, what parts you can simulate, what parts you can kind of rush towards, what parts you have to work toward. It's not like usually if you have a game that you have to give money for, there's like two or three types of currency. You know, there's like,
I hate that
this
shit.
is the currency that you can buy with money. This is the currency you get in the game, and maybe one extra if you want. We want to be assholes about it, but like, and there's a lot of different types of currency in Galaxy, but like, it's not to be, you know, mean about it. It's to give you lots of different options. So like the competitive part of Galaxy of Heroes, that's its own currency. The part of Clash of Heroes that doesn't care if you're light side or dark side, that's its own separate part of currency. And as you build up that currency, you're like, oh, I have 400 of that. Cool, I can buy 5 more tokens to get Kylo. You know, so like every day I'm constantly doing 1 or 2 things to work towards one of my goals. And it sustained me. Like I'm sure I'm going to do a hard stop one of these days where I'm just going to wake up and be like, oh, I'm bored. Uninstall. But they do a good job with microtransactions, and it's something you can do it right. A lot of people don't, but you can do it and make that. If you think about like simulation games like SimCity or something, like you're managing money. So it is, as long as you tap into that micromanagement, we actually make it like a game in and of itself.
This is really encouraging to hear. You're telling me that a free-to-play Star Wars game by Electronic Arts has like kept your interest, and that's really cool. That's not what I would have.
It's not the most unpopular grandpa thing you can say.
I think that's rad. I've seen a lot of people say positive stuff about it.
Kudos to them, especially since it's funny when they were Battlefront. They're like, oh, we can't have prequel characters in Battlefront because that's confusing. And I'm like, what?
Yeah,
you should see my party of Galaxy of Heroes right now. What are you talking about? Like, whatever. EA. Yeah,
Anything else?
That is it. Sadly, I mean, I'm trying to think. I mean, stuff that we've played on streams. Red Dead.
Yeah.
I have
Stick Bold.
We
Stick
brought up
Bold.
Stick Bold.
Stick Bold.
Apparently, I need to play more Pokken Tournament. Apparently, I need to get that game and hone my skills even further. We Arc, we were talking about earlier, and we got the new PC like on the stage. That's a travesty that like I haven't just taken that PC for test drive. Just on my own, like
Take it for a bit,
not streaming, not just sitting at home. You know, we're talking about maybe booting up 14 again on a different server.
Crisis.
And Arc is a game I definitely want to play.
Crisis.
Haven't made time for it yet.
Still choppy.
Huber, before we get to you, I have to do a quick interjection. So my little sister is doing this thing called Flat Stanley, where you have to send this little character named Stanley to a relative that is in a different part of the world.
Cool.
And so she sent it to me, and my mom was like, hey, it would be cool if you put Flat Stanley on the podcast.
Awesome.
So forgive me, like, let me have this one indulgence. Hi.
Raise it up.
Hi, people.
But
Hi,
he's
family.
So Stanley is traveling to California.
Right. So Stanley came to us as nothing but like a white character. Like he was just completely
He was a
blank.
blank canvas.
He was a blank canvas. And now that he's been to California, you could tell he's doing some tourist things. He's got a camera. He's got a California shirt and some shorts, some sandals.
Cool.
So yeah, Stanley's had a good time with us.
It gave me Hey Arthur vibes.
That's
Yeah.
what I was thinking too when I saw it. Yeah. What's on his shirt?
What's on his
Can't
shirt?
see it
It's
from
the California state symbol. It's
Oh,
the
okay.
bear and the
Cool.
star and yeah.
Best state symbol.
Yes, it's very, very good. Michael Huber,
So,
what have you been up to, man?
been playing Severed on Vita.
Are you allowed to talk about that? Because I looked
Comes
in the
out
store.
today.
Oh, it comes out today.
Pretty sure
We're
it's
sure.
today.
We're
Check
positive.
the facts.
Checking the facts.
Check the facts right now.
Checking the facts live, everyone.
90%
We can do that on this podcast.
sure it comes out today.
I just don't want to,
So you can give it.
I don't want the wrath of Bloodworth to come down. That's all I'm saying.
Severed Vita game.
Uh-huh.
Fill in the dead air.
Fill in the dead air.
Fill that dead air, people.
Let me tell you about Flat Stanley.
Tell us about him.
No, there's nothing more to say.
Stanley. Yeah. Lore's complete.
So while Huber's confirming the facts, why don't we actually jump to you, Brad? What have
Game
you
is
been up
not
to?
out yet.
Game is not out yet. When is it out? 26th.
All right, never mind.
26th.
Brad, you got cut off.
Moving on.
Okay. What have I been playing? I'm playing Hearthstone, getting ready for Old Gods.
Let's talk a little bit. How is it? I know there are a segment of our audience that doesn't love Hearthstone, but this is what you've been playing. How has
Yeah.
your Hearthstone experience been?
It's not good right now.
Tell me why it's not good.
It's not good.
What's going on?
85% of my matches are against like the same 3 decks. Mm-hmm. I play against Secret Paladin, Freeze Mage, and
You played against that much Freeze Mage?
so many Freeze Mage.
Wow.
So.
Okay.
And some kind of Warlock, Molten Giant, crazy taunt thing. What would
It's
that
all
be?
bad to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so many Secret Paladins. It's just over and over and over. And the worst part about it is whenever you lose to a Secret Paladin or it's not going your way, they BM you. They taunt. That is my experience. Like, no one ever really engages on Hearthstone with a thing. Like, every time I go into a match, I'll say greetings or whatever.
Yeah.
Secret Paladin is just, like, threatening you, taunting you, just maximum BM.
A bunch of Kyle Bossmans.
Yeah, a bunch of Kyle Bossmans.
So, in my opinion, right, those are people that aren't very good at the game that convince themselves they're good because the deck is making up most of the work, and they're just there to feel something.
Yeah.
And that's pretty disgusting.
It's working. It's working. They're getting under my skin.
I have a question.
I'm
So,
losing sleep.
for those who are unaware, you can squelch is what they call it in Hearthstone. You can make it so they can't
I
you
always
can't hear
forget
their
that.
emotes. So you just
Yeah.
forget. Otherwise, you would.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And that you have to do that for every single person, right?
Yeah, you have
Like
to do that
new
for every
match
single.
squelch.
Yeah.
Yo, Blizzard, let's get an auto squelch option in the options.
Well,
just
Huber,
squelch
there
everybody.
is a change coming to emotes with this new patch, and it coincides with the recently new set. And I want to gauge your thought on it, Brandon Jones, and your thought, Michael Huber. So instead of sorry, which is only ever used to mock your opponent,
Yeah.
ever is never used to actually apologize, they're replacing sorry with wow. And hold on one second before you jump in. Different characters will say different things of sort of that general sentiment. Like the hunter will say astounding.
Awesome.
And what they're trying to do, I think, they haven't gone on record saying this, I don't believe, but they're trying to make it so that you have an emote where something cool happens, you can be positive about it. And they're removing, sorry that was only used in a negative light. What do you think about that? Think
I
it'll
like
work?
it. Yeah, I think
Okay.
so. Yeah, because sorry every time is, you do like a brawl or something, or the RNG doesn't go your way, and they always say sorry. What do you want me to do?
Huber, there's something I want to tell the audience about how you play Hearthstone that I deeply love, and I think even if you're not interested in the game, this you'll find this somewhat endearing. So there's this really old Magic the Gathering article that basically breaks down Magic the Gathering players into 3 types, and we don't have to go over all 3 types, but one of the types is they don't make super efficient decks. They're not in it to win. They just want to play a really big dude. And if that big dude does something cool, 1 in 10 games, they're stoked.
Yeah.
They live for that moment
Yes.
where they play the giant, powerful creature and
Yep.
it just crushes their opponent.
Yeah.
Wait,
and
what's your powerful creature that you play?
Oh, I have so many.
but what your favorite one, right?
Thaddeus.
So there are these 2 cards that when both of them die in a game, you summon this gigantic dude. And that's your favorite card.
Yeah,
Right.
easily.
And it almost never works.
Ever.
But when it does,
Yeah.
you live for that. So I think they called that guy Timmy. So you got Timmy of Hearthstone.
And that's how I played Magic too, because Ryan Teen, he would have there were a group of 10 of us. Ryan Teen would always have a control deck, a control white deck that would counter spells, and it would have
Counter spells.
just a couple flying creatures that if you couldn't deal with flying, they were just gonna peck at you and peck at you and die. And every time you would try to put a big guy out, it would be nope, cycle him out, or nope, put him back in your deck. And I just wouldn't quit. I would refuse to change my deck, and I would just have I had this red and green beast deck. That
I
was
knew
just
you were a red and green player.
Every single turn, I was putting out some big boy, and when it would work, 1 out of 10 times, like Vin was saying, I would just get so excited. But it was rare that it worked.
That's awesome. Not to linger on Hearthstone too much longer, but just generally, because we're going to shoot specific Hearthstone videos after this.
Yeah.
So you think I get the feeling you think the game is a little stale right now.
Yeah. I think I'm putting time in because it's kind of the last time that Hearthstone is going to be like this, kind of the original iteration of Hearthstone. This is it. It's all going to change on Tuesday when they introduce the new game mode. So
Do you have faith that the new standard format and the new expansion are going to change things?
100%. If not right away, I think this is the first step to a much better game.
Cool. Besides Hearthstone, what else has been keeping you busy?
Really quickly, Dark Souls 3, I haven't been able to put that much time into because I can only play in the most optimal setting or else I won't play it. I need to have at least 4 free hours. It needs to be completely dark outside. I need to have a bottle of red wine or a fresh brew of coffee. So all of these stars have not aligned. I've been just so busy. So I'm only like 4 or 5 hours into that. But I just played episode 2 of Walking Dead Michonne because 3's coming out.
Hold on. I don't want to cut you off, but and we definitely will not say any Dark Souls spoilers. I want to make that clear. There will be no spoilers. But you were a big proponent of Bloodborne, and you liked the changes that they made from kind of the regular Souls formula. Going back to Souls, like just very generally, very broadly, how does it feel to you?
Feels great.
Why?
I just got a new weapon, and it got me really excited because the Kirk hammer in Bloodborne is like one of my favorite video game weapons of all time now, easily. So, Dark Souls, like, sure, they have the Kirk hammer in Bloodborne, but it's more of, like, the original Bloodborne was more of, like, smaller weapons and swords and even the hunter axe. Everything felt more agile, whereas Dark Souls was, like, shield, big clay, more hammered.
You can
whatever.
hunker down, and you like that.
So, after having Bloodborne and now going back, I'm into hunkering down again. So,
cool.
Yeah.
Walking to Michonne, man. I've been meaning to play that.
It's great. It's more action packed, I guess you could say, because Michonne is a fighter versus Clementine is, not a helpless little girl, but a little girl, a kid in this crazy world. So she relies on others and others kind of look to her youth for guidance. Michonne is just a warrior. So that lends itself to this kind of three-part mini Walking Dead series. It's awesome. It's great. The story's great.
Is it a prequel?
It's a prequel to the Walking Dead Telltale games. It takes place in a very specific point within the comics. In the comics, Michonne leaves for a while, leaves Rick's group. It's that story.
Oh, cool. Oh, neat.
Yeah, so it actually ties into the comics.
Something that always really seemed appealing to me about this particular take on a Walking Dead game is, like with the main Walking Dead series, I think something that kind of got under my skin is, it was always about an ensemble. And there were so many moving parts, and there would be good parts and bad parts, and sometimes that would mess with the overall tone. And why I was really excited about Season 2 is it seemed like it was focusing a lot more on Clementine, but then you kind of got more ensemble elements as the season went on. With Walking Dead Michonne, they can really focus on this character.
Yeah.
And do you feel like that's happening and that's beneficial?
Yes, I'm all about quality over quantity, and it's like I just feel like things are too long now. An example is like Daredevil. It's like 13 1-hour-long episodes. It's like just trim the fat a little bit. Throw out like 3 episodes, because it kind of drags here and there. By having only 3 episodes of Walking Dead Michonne, it is tight and everything is meaningful and there's no dead air and there's no filler. It moves and it goes.
All killer, no filler.
All killer, no filler.
Do you feel like you're learning more about that character in a meaningful way?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, it's good. It's good. The finale is this coming Tuesday. I'm so excited.
Anything else that's been keeping you up at night?
No, I'm just ready to go back to Dark Souls. I'm ready.
Brad, you've been playing a lot of Dark Souls.
That's the only thing I've been playing.
What do you want to say about Dark Souls?
Man, I feel bad about saying anything about it.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to ruin anything for anybody.
It's that special to you. Can you at least tell our lovely viewers, is it living up to your expectations?
I would say it's surpassing them in some ways.
So you're definitely liking it more than you expected.
Yes, I am.
Okay. So what was that initial hesitancy, do you think? Like maybe
Just like third one of Dark Souls. I'm like, all right.
Just worried about
year
burnout.
after year after year.
So, Brad, kind of the feeling that I went through after I finished Dark Souls 3 is like going into it, I was like, man, if this is the last Souls game, it's going to be awesome. I'm excited to see what they do next. After I finished it, I kind of went back on it and I was like, man, maybe if they could give me some more Souls, that would be all right. You know?
DLC.
Are you sort of having that feeling?
It's if they made another one, I'd be excited.
Okay.
But I really want them to do something new.
So, wherever they take you, you're down.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
from software, yeah. I think I'm starting to like it more than Bloodborne, which is a huge shock to me.
Yeah, that's where I ended too, and I was shocked as well.
Like so many cool moments that you and me have talked about, but we can't talk about them yet.
Right.
We gotta do a whole separate thing on that. Period.
Definitely, yeah. I was joking about a 10-hour Dark Souls podcast, but something will probably
3
happen.
hours.
Somewhat. Brandon,
3
you've
for 3.
been really quiet on the Dark Souls 3 front, and it just I don't want to like speak for you, but it seems like you may not play it at all.
I can't promise because I making promises on anything associated with Easy Allies is not something I'm very comfortable doing. You know, it's like
Right.
anytime I make a promise, like, oh wait, no, wait. But I'm kind of like you, Huber, like, and not so much with the, it's like, yeah, I'll play Dark Souls during the day, it's fine. But I don't want 30 minutes, no effing
Yeah,
way.
an
You know,
hour,
I don't want to like play for 30 minutes and then get back to it 9 days later and be like, oh yeah, this boss is, what does he do? You know, I want to be able to like 3-4 hours really commit, get a couple bosses in, get hooked, get to that first point where I know like, okay, this is, I feel comfortable with this world. I know I can understand my progression.
Subconsciously, because I feel like a couple things I want to bring up. The Witcher 3, a lot of people passed over because it was the third game in the series. Bloodborne came out.
I don't think that's true.
A lot.
I don't think that's. More people played Witcher 3 than any other Witcher game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there goes that theory. It's just that's the way it felt like with Kyle and Ian and them. They weren't attached, so they gave it a shot because of the hype, but then they backed out. Bloodborne came out for like Kyle, bringing up Kyle and everyone. Fresh start. It was easier for everyone to hop in.
Sure.
I'm getting a number 3 in the series vibe of people saying, well, it's Dark Souls 3. I didn't get through 1 and 2. I've seen people on Twitter going back, playing them, trying to catch up for 3.
Good.
Is that getting to you that it's 3 and you didn't finish 1 or 2? Or
No,
does
not at all.
does it matter at all?
See, thank you.
Because
Thank
the
you.
one thing, there's a lot of criticisms that I can, toss at like the entire series for being just like, I know the enigmatic story is like, it works out if you actually dig through, but like, I know I'm never going to do that. And so it doesn't have the same impact on me. But at the same time, I think the thing I can appreciate from looking at the Souls games is that you will get benefits from playing 1 and then going into 2, but you won't play 2 and be like, what am I like? You're gonna say, what am I missing anyway? Like you're gonna walk in this world and go, what the hell's going on? Whether you played 1 or not. So it's doesn't seem like a game whereas Witcher probably would, where like I'd be walking around with the redhead. Boy, it's been a long time. What is her name? Trish. And Trish would mention something.
Trish,
and Garrett,
sorry.
Trish. And Garrett would laugh, and I'm like, cool guys, I have no idea what you're talking about. I didn't play Witcher 1. I missed that. And I don't feel that with Souls.
That's what happened when we played Witcher 3. Like, their character would talk to me.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, I don't know who that is. But then you're like, dude, do you remember when you talked to this character?
Yeah.
I was like, I have no idea who that was. And I've played all of them.
Yeah.
I don't remember them.
Yeah.
A personal pet peeve of mine, and I've had so many people do this to me, and I know you guys have had it happen to you, and it's not a bad thing. Like, I'm always happy when people reach out and ask questions and like solicit our opinions. Like, that's really cool that people want to do that. But the more that I've thought about it, the more I get frustrated when they're like, oh, hey, it's the third game in the series, like Dark Souls or Witcher, whatever it is. They're like, should I play this? Should I start at the beginning? Or it's a series like Shin Megami Tensei where there are a bunch of different branches and they're like, which one should I play? And I get where they're coming from. I get how that can be overwhelming, but no one can really answer that question other than you. And sometimes I think if you're just like, man, I just want to start with the most recent one, that's okay.
Yeah, you changed my life on that, man.
That's
Just hop
okay.
in.
There's nothing wrong with that. Like, you only have so much time. And so
Yeah.
for a lot of you, if you have 3 60-hour games, you're probably not going to play all 3 of them. Like, unless you're in a very special circumstance and you have that much time. And so it's okay. Maybe playing the most recent one will inspire you to go back. And if the game is good, there will either be enough hooks that you don't really care if you don't get every single reference or story thread or whatever, or it'll do a good enough job of catching you up to speed. Like, sometimes I get so frustrated because I've had messages where people are like, yeah, I just sort of languished with this decision and I never played anything. And it's like, man, it's way better to just hop in and give it a shot.
Like Yakuza came out, Yakuza 5, and I'm just a lore whore. Like, I need to play in order. It's my OCD. It just wraps me up. Ben was like, just tell people to dive in. Because I had played Yakuza 1 through 4.
Right.
And people kept asking me. They were like, oh, should I play 5 or should I go back and play 1 through 4? And in the beginning, I was like, dude, you really got to play 1 through 4. It's a building story. Ben was like, just play, just hop in. I'm like, you know what? You're right. Just, if you want to play it, just dive in.
And the other thing is, games aren't like movies or books where there are some series that have been going on for so long that if you're like, I'm going to start at the beginning, you might hate it, right? Because it is not a modern game anymore, right? There are going to be data mechanics. There are things that will probably frustrate you. But if you play the most recent entry and you're like, holy cow, this is really cool, you might be more forgiving of those things that would maybe initially frustrate you. But Bradley Ellis, going back to you, anything else you've been playing that you want to talk about?
No.
Okay.
Dark Souls only.
All right. Simple and to the point.
Exclusively.
Yeah, exclusive.
What about Overwatch?
I've played that only when streaming. That's it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Any new revelations on Overwatch?
I like to watch
there's
Brad playing Overwatch. That's a revelation.
Oh, nice.
Ooh.
Oh.
I just really quick, just to compliment you, Brad. Like I just cut a video about our second channel, Easy Allies Plays. If you guys don't know, we have a second channel, and the channel that is not the channel you're on right now watching this video. And it's where we just dump all our Twitch stuff. And so I downloaded one of course I skipped Ben. I didn't download this. I get a text from Ben. He's like, no Dragon Quest? I'm like, I'm sorry, I'll get it. But like I got like one clip. I tried to get everybody. And I grabbed you playing Overwatch. And you, of all of the streams that I grabbed, I lost myself for like 10 minutes. It was just
Nice.
like, I was watching and just like, wow, that is entertaining. Like,
Take that, Bosman v. Wozniak.
take that.
Yeah.
I'm just
Exactly.
joking. I'm just joking.
No,
I'm
feels
just
good,
joking.
man.
I'm
Yeah,
just
I mean,
joking.
that's I'm sure. Yeah, Overwatch is gonna win that any day. The black and white small square in the corner.
It turns out Brad is pretty good at video games.
Yeah.
And
video games he's
digs
passionate
in.
about for sure.
Yeah. It's that very special time of the podcast, my favorite time. Brandon, it's your first one. It's time for Hottake. And I have a very special surprise this week. I'm going to throw you guys a curveball.
Ooh.
It's double Hottake.
What?
Yeah, we got
Two for
two
one?
things to talk about, and they're both very
what is it? Baron
different
Vaughn.
from each other.
Baron Vaughn trigger battle cry twice.
What?
What?
Who's the horse?
Baron von Rivendare.
Baron von
Trigger your
Rivendare
death
on
rattles
this
twice.
Hottake right
Yeah,
here.
there you go.
Amanda calls him Baron Rivendell and doesn't care. Doesn't
was the
care. I
nerdiest
correct her
thing.
and she keeps on doing it. I'm like,
That's a really cool fight in 1 2. Anyway, speaking of World of Warcraft, that is the subject of our first Hottake.
Whoa.
And the reason I chose this, I know it's not like hot news anymore, but the reason I wanted to do this is because of this very special panel. All three of them have lost months of their lives to World of Warcraft. And so,
gained.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no one else at Easy Allies who could, I think, speak as intelligently or go into as much depth as these three fine gentlemen. And so what we're talking about today, and you can probably guess, there was a very popular private server called Nostalrius. I think I'm pronouncing that. Yes, Nostalrius. And it was running vanilla World of Warcraft servers. And it gained a lot of traction because it did something that other private servers running vanilla didn't do. And there were no sort of like scummy, backshore dated deals going on where they tried to get you to spend money or was constantly getting in your face. This was just Warcraft as you remember it, 2004, 2005 era. And people loved it. They had thousands and thousands and thousands of people playing.
I think they had 100,000
Yeah.
active users. Yeah, something crazy.
it
like
was
that.
it was a lot
That's
of people.
insane.
And they weren't, I can't confirm this, but everyone is saying, and what they've said publicly is they really weren't making money doing this. And as John Tron said in his video, they were doing it for the love of the game. And they were just about to roll out, I always mispronounce this, but Encourage, the giant world event with the insects
AQ.
and all that stuff. Yeah, AQ. And, you just think about that and you get excited. And people were really loving it because World of Warcraft, Worlds of Draenor, has not had good post-release content. I don't think anyone can argue that.
It was
It's
the
just,
fastest I've ever bailed on a World of Warcraft.
it's, and
Well,
a lot of
weeks.
people
Yeah.
have seen things the way you do, Brad, and they're not reporting subscription numbers anymore, right? So that can't be a good sign. If you look at subscription numbers for World of Warcraft, there's a huge spike at Warlord's release and then just a cliff.
Yeah.
Like it just falls. And I want to gauge your guys' opinion on this because there's been a lot of articulate points made on both sides. Blizzard sent a cease and desist letter to the people running Nostalrius. Do you think... I mean, obviously, Blizzard is within their legal right of doing that. And which sort of side do you fall on? Do you think just because they can do this, they should have done
I'm so
this?
bummed.
Why do you think they did it?
Well, they have to, because 150,000, that is, even if half of those people bailed on Warlords to go there, that's 75,000 subscriptions. That's a huge number. I mean, hell, even like if 30, 40,000 people... So I understand why they did it, because that's a big piece of the pie going away.
But World of Warcraft still has millions of active subscribers.
Yeah. But like what if this took off? What if this was still going when Legion came out and people were like, "Oh, why do I need Legion? I'm just playing vanilla World of Warcraft."
Right.
So it would take away from the launch of that. They needed to do it, but at the same time, speaking from passion, speaking from like Blizzard, like the motto of Blizzard and just Blizzard as a company, I feel like this is against what they stand for. It's like, why are you not letting us play the game the way we want to play it, or like just vanilla World of Warcraft, you know?
There's something about World of Warcraft that it feels a little bit different than some other stories with some other games, because there was this thing at BlizzCon, I don't remember when it was exactly, where a guy during a Q&A session got on and he said, "Hey, can we have vanilla servers?" And the response, and I don't think it was intended to be as malicious as it came across, but the developer said, "You think you want vanilla servers, but you don't."
His tone was very bad.
It was not. It
was a
is
bad
taken
tone.
off. It has kind of
Yeah.
become something people point to during this whole
Yeah,
thing.
he's like, you don't want that. You think you want that, but you don't want that.
And that's not Blizzard at its best to me. I mean, there are stories about the development of the original StarCraft, okay, where the initial unveiling was hugely negative, and so they took it back and they said, "Wait a minute, let's fix this." And you think about Diablo 3, right? So that arrogance was kind of present at the launch of Diablo 3, where they're like, no, real money auction house, always online, it's all good. Clearly it wasn't, right? And they fixed that, and with Reaper of Souls and with all the content updates, Diablo 3 is in a much better state. It's being more warmly received. And to me, when things like that happen, not a lot of game companies do that. Not a lot of game companies backpedal and say, "No, we messed up." And that was something that I admired about Blizzard.
True.
But this seems to
Amen,
be
brother. Sing it.
the antithesis of that. If people aren't buying Legion because they want a different game, that's sending a message.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so, yeah, I don't know. Brandon, what do you think?
Highly unpopular opinion on this one.
I love it. That's what I wanted.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Corporate Jones.
Full on 100% Blizzard. Yeah, just shut it down. Shut it down now.
But give me a defense. Give me a reasoning.
Is it sad? Yes. Should these people play whatever version of WoW they want? Of course. Is it 2016? Yeah. Go run a server. Do whatever you want. You know, like if you have the gumption to do it, yeah. But we do live in this era. It's the same on YouTube now for using popular music. You know, it's like if you're no one cares. If you're someone famous, you don't have to worry about it. If you're in that middle group where you're just big enough to get noticed, but you're not big enough to have a friend that you can reach out to connect you actually with the person, you know, face to face. That's what I love about Weird Al. He's always kind of existed in that weird realm where, like, he's not really that famous, but, like, the guy actually gets on the phone and calls every person. It's like, I would like to parody your song, and they're either totally down or they're not, you know, like, there's an infamous list of people he's called, and they're like, no. So, as a content producer, I remember when my wife did this short film one time, and the guy had, like, Cocoa Puffs in one scene, and I'm like, how's he paying for that? She's like, oh, he doesn't care about that. And I'm like, you know, I'm like, it'd be so easy to just make a stupid fake cereal box and put it in, but you gotta be balls and be like, I don't care, I'm making a movie. And it's like, come on, learn how to do it. Go get permits, do it, like, or don't. And so it's like, when I see something that gets that big and is still like not, we're like, well, we don't play by the rules. It's like, well, this is always potentially gonna happen. This is always somebody's
It
gonna.
doesn't
Yeah, that's
seem malicious like that, though. Vanilla WoW server. Like, it doesn't, if I were to run it, I wouldn't be thinking about, like, permits and all that.
Totally.
Yeah.
But again, devil's advocate. The existence of a WoW server suggests with every fiber of every, of every being, of every person playing that game, the current WoW is wrong. The current WoW is not cutting it. The current WoW is bad, is broken. The game never got better. It's like, and I'm not putting words in the mouths of the people playing that. This is just a perception.
That is exactly what they
exists,
say. Yeah.
Right? And so it's like them look. I mean, think about it. Just try to tap into their mindset a little bit by thinking about what we've just did with starting Easy Allies. We're now a month old, and we started this thing, and we have this amazing community, albeit 1/1,000,000th the size of something that Blizzard has, even for one division of what they produce, being World of Warcraft. You think about this other group of people that are just kind of running with it. They're just like, oh, you took that thing, okay, now it's our thing, and they're like, no, it's not at all. Like, yeah, you guys have your own connection. It's like, well, we have our connection to this game because we played it, and like how you're stepping on our emotional connection to the game. And they're like, yeah, we made it. So, it's like, so we also have a very strong emotional connection to it too. And we have a whole story that unfortunately you can't be a part of because it was just the story of us building this game. And to us, this is just not World of Warcraft.
Then
It's not where we're at.
They should go Dota style. They should hire these people to run a vanilla WoW server, and you can pay like a half a subscription.
But Blizzard didn't hire those Dota people. Valve did.
Yeah, exactly. But they should do that.
Let me throw something at you. That's another layer to this thing that
Sure.
you may not care about at all. I'm curious to see if you do care about it. Game preservation is a big deal to me. I think it matters, and it infuriates me that there is. I mean, there probably are, but just for the sake of argument, there's not an easy, convenient, readily available way to just go play City of Heroes, which I think is a super influential game.
I know.
There's not an easy, convenient way to go play Enter the Matrix, right? Which
Galaxies.
right,
Galaxies, man.
right? All that's
Those maps were epic, man. First time I saw Jabba's Palace coming up over the horizon, emotional.
all that stuff.
Like,
is important, and I think will be important in the future
sure.
and should exist in some way. And if you
Yeah.
can't get these companies to do it for whatever reason, if they don't want to, or the product's still ongoing, or the company's got shut down, like if they're not going to do it, who else is?
Correct. Which is why if there was a group that it was in their focus was to preserve a game, I would say more power to you. And if a developer tried to shut them down, I would say, well, they can. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it might be unpopular to be on both sides of that argument, but
I see what you're saying,
see
though.
both cases.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm so proud of you guys for having, for being that committed to something, to being able to preserve it. But you have to understand that you're getting into,
it just seems like very out of touch of Blizzard. They seem so distant from what they used to be. Like, do you know what I'm saying, kind of thing?
Sure.
But honestly, Brad, that's a perfect comment because I think it springboard into the next thing, which is kind of about Blizzard as a whole, where WoW has been going on for more than a decade.
Yeah.
That's a long time for any video game to go on. And sometimes I feel a little bit sympathetic, and I want to know if you guys agree or if this is just not an excuse at all, where when you have something that goes on that long, it's like a band, right? I always get really frustrated when a band is criticized, they've been around forever, and they change their sound a little bit, Like, of course they're going to. Like, they're people, their tastes change, their influences change, they're going to change, and their art is going to change as well. And I think the same is true of games. Like, I think a lot of people just view World of Warcraft as a service, as a product, and maybe it is primarily that, but like the people making it and how they feel about things is going to change. And sometimes I feel like no matter what they do with World of Warcraft, it's been so many different things to so many different people that you just can't please everybody. And where do you guys fall on
I
that
think
argument?
there's a point to that, but at one point, the changes people were going with, from Vanilla WoW to Burning Crusade to Wrath of Lich King,
Right.
like going uphill.
Right.
But then it just kind of started Cataclysm, Miss Pandaria.
What was the turning point for you?
For me?
Yeah.
It was probably Cataclysm if I look back on it.
Specifically, it was no more world PvP and flying mounts disconnecting me from the world. When flying mounts came into the equation, it was zip, 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 zip around quest. When I had to run everywhere or even mount on the ground, try to get around mobs and other Alliance scum or whatever it was, when you went to the air, there was no fear anymore. It was about how can I get to level cap fastest? And
Huber, I've been leveling a mage in World of Warcraft in secret. I played World of Warcraft this week.
yeah.
I'm level 26, okay?
Yeah.
The other night I was roaming around Duskwood,
Yeah.
okay? And Duskwood is an amazing area.
Yeah.
It's just got a really cool kind of horror atmosphere.
So
There
you're
are
Alliance.
quest lines about murders going on.
Totally.
'Kay?
Captain of the Guard.
There
and
was
stuff.
no reason. This is not hyperbole. There was no reason for me to engage from a efficiency standpoint, from a getting the most value out of my time standpoint. There was no reason to engage with any of it because the best way for me to level, the best way for me to experience like the raid content that I haven't yet, is to sit in Stormwind, pull up Dungeon Finder. Like you get so much more experience in such a shorter amount of time that if you want to get to the end, if that's your ultimate goal, that is the best way to do it.
Yeah.
And so all of these storylines, all of these places that I remember loving and really getting invested in, or even some areas, because I always play Horde, I'm playing Alliance for the first time. Sorry, everyone. All these places that I haven't seen get changed from Cataclysm, like there's no reason.
Yeah.
And I miss the days, and this is just like old man Ben, but like I miss the days of like when you had to do a dungeon, you had to fucking show up at that goddamn
Walk
stone,
outside, yeah.
and you'd be like, no, I need you guys to get here so we
Yeah.
can summon this other guy who's on the other side of the world, and you had to interact, and you had to figure out these problems, and people had to talk
There
to
was
each
a
other.
sense of community.
I am not kidding. I have run 10 dungeons this week. I think 1 out of those 10 runs, somebody said something, and it was just a hello, goodbye.
Yeah.
Other than that, no one said anything, and that's not an MMO.
Yeah.
That is a single-player game where other people happen to be a part of it. And that sucks.
Can I bring up something that is concerning to me for
Yes.
Legion?
Yes.
I think this is true. I heard about this. That zones are going to scale now for leveling up. So there will be no sense of like progression that you're feeling as you're going from zone to zone, going from now on. It's just going to take out even more of like feeling being a part of the world. Like there's going to be, the impression I'm getting is like there's going to be no, like you're not going to go in a zone. There's going to be like 2 skull question mark guys or something like that.
Right.
But there's like a sense of threat in the world or something.
I remember getting to Ungoro Crater was like, oh my god, I'm finally going into Ungoro Crater.
Right.
Like dinosaurs are 55. He's got a skull. Like, oh my god, I
Right.
can't believe I made it here.
To bounce off your point, one of my favorite memories in World of Warcraft, and no one else is going to think this is a big deal, but Burning Crusade, going through the Dark Portal, and just seeing a Fel Reaver,
Yeah.
and being like, this thing is like a skyscraper. I am an ant to this thing, and you couldn't fight it and take it on until much later, and how cool that was. And you're totally right, I'm worried that that's going to go his way as well. I think their argument for that is people playing World of Warcraft have a bunch of different characters, and so
Yeah.
they want you to be able to go into any order to sort of make the repeat experience maybe a little bit more enjoyable, a little bit more flexible, maybe not as stale because you're not going through the same route every time. But you're right, I don't know if that's worth the initial experience.
I think the hardcore though
Yeah,
are
so
just
good.
gonna hop in Dungeon Finder though. Anyways, they're not gonna even
But
bother with that.
you probably
like the first
can't right
run-through,
away.
Yeah, but I'm saying like first run through, they'll probably do the zones or whatever. But when they're doing their next character,
Right.
they're gonna be like, oh, it's just faster to do Dungeon Finder.
Right.
Why am I even doing this?
They just made too many changes to become as accessible as possible to the most amount of people, and I feel like it's past the point of no return.
They got
It's
to
like
wrap
you-
it up.
yeah,
It's time to
you
wrap it up.
can't
But
just
you did
start
a great
getting
job.
a
You did a great job.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
What an accomplishment.
Yeah.
Wrap. End it with as much of a bang as it
Yeah.
had
Well,
when it
oh.
peaked. You know what I mean? Like,
I fall asleep to dreams of the World of Warcraft finale.
can you imagine?
Just an entire war in the center of the world,
Like,
Alliance
like-
versus Horde. When you
Like,
die, your
all
character
the
gets
portals
deleted.
open. Every single character from
Yes.
every walk of Warcraft all comes back.
Open
all of them
world
at the same time.
battle.
Every boss fight that's ever existed in the series, all in one dungeon. Like it's just like
The problem with that is,
I just
Brandon,
don't want it to whimper. I just don't want. I just
Hey,
don't
if
want
Star
one.
Wars
I just don't
Galaxies
want
can
one
go
day for
out-
you to wake up and your dog's gone. You're like, "Where's the dog?" It's like, "Oh, I saw her going by the shed." And you go by the shed, and it's just dead. And you're like, "Oh, come on!" You know, it's like, "Oh, did you hear they just shut down the WoW servers today?" It's like,
It'll be
well,
epic.
they were around for 18 years. I mean, it was gonna end sooner or later.
It's
like,
going with a bang.
honestly, I don't care if people crucify me for this. In a way, WoW fans have fucking ruined WoW. And they've ruined it forever because...
Passion. I'm feeling the
And
passion right now.
I know you don't like this. Mists of Pandaria, I don't give a shit what anybody says. It was actually a really cool expansion. They had totally different types of characters with totally different art styles, telling unique stories that had not been told before. It just wasn't like, oh fuck, here's Khadgar again. What's he up to? Like, no,
Here's
it was
Illidan again.
it was its own storyline, and everybody was like, oh, I don't want to play a game with pandas in it. That's for babies. And like, this is the most immature fucking schoolboy arguments. And so we have Warlords of Draenor. It's like, hey, remember all those people that died and are gone? We brought them
They're back.
hey, Legion, you remember fucking Illidan? He's on the box. Like,
Yeah,
that is to
what?
me like some of the most
It's-
creatively bankrupt
Yeah,
bullshit.
you're right.
See, to me, it wasn't the pandas by themselves. It was the pandas immediately following Nefarian. You know, it was immediately literally being like,
That's a
oh
good
my,
point,
oh my
actually.
god,
Or
dude,
Deathwing.
I just killed Nefarian.
Deathwing.
Deathwing.
Or isn't
Deathwing.
his real-
Nefarian-
isn't
Nefarian was
his real name?
Nefarian
Old
was
school.
vanilla or beast.
Blackwing
Deathwing-
Lair.
wasn't
Blackwing
Deathwing
Lair.
Blackwing
a
Lair, it's
nickname,
vanilla,
though?
it's vanilla,
Was
it's vanilla.
Deathwing like his name? I thought-
Yeah.
Oh, never mind.
It's alright. It's okay.
But
It's fucking wild lore.
you're just like, oh my
We're
god,
all quite
I
wrong.
killed one of the what is like an ancient? Is that what
Yeah,
he's
he's
called?
some.
You're like, I killed one of the ancients. That's crazy. And then the pandas. You're like, all right.
That's a really good
if,
point.
if they'd slipped in pandas before, if pandas was like after Lich King, like I could have totally gone for pandas. Just like,
Right.
oh, pandas be a nice
It's-
palate cleanser after like
That's
you know, I
because
was just
on-
weeping through Arthas like the whole time.
Every expansion leading up to that, they built up like a sort of villain to work towards.
Yeah.
Like Burn Crusade was Illidan, then it was Arthas, then it was Deathwing, then you just see some Kung Fu Panda on the box. Which I love the pandas from Warcraft 3, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But I was like, what the fuck? Who
It's
am I
like,
fighting
I've never seen 11 or 14 Final Fantasy doing something that seemed as like knee jerk as the way Blizzard has handled Warcraft. You know,
Definitely.
it's like when a change would come to Paladin or Priest, or I wouldn't be like, oh, interesting. I'd be like, oh, well, yeah, right, okay, you listened, I guess. Or, you know, it's like that was just people like, you know, just crying and spilling milk all over the place. And
Me.
it's like, there you go, now you got your change. So I have like friends that like wouldn't play for a year, and then they would come back in and they're like, yeah, sure, I'll pick up my Paladin. Wait, what class is this? I'm like, oh yeah, they told it, and they're like, I'm not playing. I don't know what this is. It isn't fun. They took a
Right.
class I liked and made it not what I wanted to do, and so it was just weird to me. Well, it was unfortunate because, but again, it makes no business sense at all. But like, I'm a just complete old man when it comes to MMOs. It's like I would much rather play something for the world. And it would frustrate me that like you could go to Dalaran and people would be like, why go there? And it's like, because it's beautiful, I guess. Okay.
I hate
you
Dalaran.
know, it's like, why go? You know, I'm like, I would go back to people would make fun of me. He's like, go to Darnassus, and I would like shop there. And people are like, what do you do to Darnassus? Get out of Darnassus. I'm like, it's my home. You know, it's like I still like going to these places and experiencing this world as if I live there. I guess. I guess I'm playing the wrong game.
Brandon, what makes you so beautiful, and I mean this, and I'm going to use the word beautiful here, is that's how you play and enjoy games. And Kyle Bossman is the same way too. And you all are to your own various degrees, but like in Hearthstone, you play hunters and you play beasts in those hunter decks
Yeah.
because you fucking love hunter. That's your identity. That's what you attach yourself to. And to hear you say like, I just want to wander around this big world. I wish more people could enjoy things like that.
One change I want to see to come to MMOs, which is like the unsexiest thing you could possibly say about advertising new content. But like to me, what Blizzard set up with World of Warcraft is every time it's like, oh, new expansion coming. That's why Cataclysm was so refreshing. You're like, oh, new expansion. Where are we going? And like, I would love to have a game expand, and you're like, where are we going? And they're like, to the same place you've been. New stuff is going to happen. You know, like it is going to be a new chapter of this story. It's not like book 2 of, you know, like Harry Potter. It was like, what wizard school are we going to now? It's like, you're going back to Hogwarts, but you're going to find the Chamber of Secrets now. Like, you're going to learn all this new thing, and you'll be like, oh, there's more here. And everything in Warcraft seems like you're done. You ate this plate of food. You're moving on. Like, there's an island over there. Go there. There's no reason to stay here.
One of my favorite things, probably my favorite thing about Final Fantasy XIV, I have a lot of problems with that game, but I think something it does extremely well is how story-driven it is. And every beat they make, every piece of content they put out, whatever patch it is or expansion, it builds the storyline in a way that makes sense. And it isn't just throwing stuff in there for the sake of mechanics. And you feel like you're actually taking that next step on the journey, which I feel like, as you said, WoW has gotten away from. And I think part of that is because WoW was a sequel to Warcraft 3, where they had this story with Arthas, where they had this story with Illidan, and in Burning Crusade and with Wrath of the Lich King, we did that.
Yeah.
They wrapped it up.
We wrapped up the
So
story.
cool.
And so
So
now you
cool.
get you kind of get this lingering feeling that everything after that has been because this is a product that needs to continue.
Ben,
I-
I know Brad agrees with me. Once you start throwing alternate timelines in
Oh,
there,
absolutely.
I'm out.
Yeah.
I don't think I will ever defeat a boss in my life that I've been so emotionally invested in, other than Arthas. Like I don't think I'll ever get to that point where like I like that breath, like when he was we finally
Right.
took that bastard down, just like
Were there tears?
that was there weren't tears because it was E3. It was E3. I was at my desk at Game Trailers at E3, and I was like, it was just raid night, and I'm like, guys, it's E3. And they're like, well, if you can play from the office. It was just like a lull. I think it was like the third day of E3, and so like the
Downtime.
editors were just on it, and like I was just approving videos, and I would like went around all the booths. I'm like, I'm gonna do a run. okay, it was cool. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to be out for the next 45 minutes, just heads up. And then we did one run, and we were so close. And I remember being like, we're going to kill him next time, aren't we? And then we did it. And it was like my dinky, crappy, 20 frames per second, like PC and game shows. I'm like, no. And like everyone else in the guild is at home in their headphones.
Like freaking out, yeah.
It's like, of course I'm at work. And their heart is dead. Like,
But you got to experience it. That's
but I got to get them. And because they nerfed it every 2 weeks or something.
Yeah.
And it was before the final nerfing. They were like, okay, at least we didn't,
right.
push it until then.
Quick
emotional.
tinfoil hat mode, real quick for you, Ben.
Okay, hit me.
Do you think they plan on wrapping WoW up sooner than later because they were working on Project Titan, which inevitably became Overwatch, which was supposed to be an MMO? And they're like, we could fall back onto a new MMO if we start closing WoW down or slowing it down. But now there's nothing there that we know about yet.
I don't think so. I think because from what it sounds like, based on all the information we have with Project Titan was not just another MMO.
Mm-hmm.
It was like this weird hybrid thing that was sort of doing its own sort of stuff. So I think my personal belief, I have nothing to base this on, is it was different enough that it could exist concurrently with something like WoW, which did sort of set that standard. But maybe if Titan did come out and it was so massive and it did have the impact of World of Warcraft, maybe that flame would have died as a result, but who knows. I don't want to cut anybody off if there's anything else you want to say about Warcraft.
I want to say wrap it up.
Wrap it
on
up.
on WoW.
Yeah,
You're
wrap it up.
ready to end it?
I've been ready.
Please.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite things in video games is when an MMO just ends. It's like the end of the upcoming season of Game of Thrones. They're wrapping it up.
Yeah,
So
wrap it up.
Galaxies.
It's the end. Imagine if all of your favorite shows just kind of didn't really end. They just kind of did another. And we'll do a 9th season, and then
Deadwood?
We'll stop halfway through. Yeah.
Brandon, you incidentally stumbled upon the second Hottake.
Deadwood.
Talking about Deadwood. Here we go.
I want to make this a mini Hottake, but as I said, kind of in the first episode, we're not always going to talk about video games. Sometimes we're going to talk about movies. Sometimes we're going to talk about TV shows. Sometimes we're going to talk about professional wrestling. And I don't want this to become a Game of Thrones episode, but we're 2 days away. We're recording this on a Friday, so by the time you see this, the episode would have already happened. But season 6 of Game of Thrones, you're all... I don't know, Brad. Actually, I don't know, Brad, if you are. Okay, you're caught up.
I've read the last 2 books also.
Awesome. Excellent stuff. So we're all Game of Thrones fans here. We're all big fantasy nerds. This is the first time the show has been ahead of the books, and I guess that's kind of my central question for you guys is, does that make you worried? Does it make you excited? Where are your feelings sitting with that?
Corrections music. We have jumped on occasion. The show
yeah.
Like case in point, people are dead on the show and they aren't in the books. So there
Right.
are a couple of timelines that like they could just kind of run off.
I'm not saying
But
yeah.
yeah.
That sort of baseline isn't there anymore.
It's the first time we're going into a season where it's like 3 episodes into this season.
Who knows?
Here we go.
And before we go any further, I don't want to neuter this discussion, so I want to let everybody know there might be some spoilers. So
We'll try not to.
We'll try not
I think
to.
I can get-
We
get
will
most
do
of my
our
opinions
best,
out.
but if you don't want to hear anything about Game of Thrones, I understand that. Just know that this is what we're talking about now, so don't blame me if you hear something you don't want to. That's all I wanted to say.
Play it safe.
But go into it, Brandon. You seem like you had something to say.
Oh, not specific. Well, I was curious what your question was going to be, just to talk about.
Yeah,
Where
so
we're at. I wanted to clarify where we're at. That
yeah.
It is possible that we could watch an episode, the first episode, and actually they could fill it with everything we know. Like they could choose to focus on characters,
Absolutely.
and kind of clean up some dirty laundry that is left over from last season.
Do you think it's safe to say that we're gonna get into crazy stuff?
There are characters that if we see like certain characters on screen, I'll be like, here we go. Like, oh no,
Right.
like I have no idea what they're doing. And not only that, but characters like like Jamie, where it was just like, where is he go? Yeah, he was over there. He's over there in the books. He's over there. He's on the other side of the planet. Like so. Yeah, I'm on the fence, man. It's exciting. Am I excited to hear more about the story? Yeah, I'm excited where like just Game of Thrones, the whole thing is at. It's confusing and frustrating, and but the show, yeah, pumped.
Speaking of confusing
Somebody's
and frustrating,
gotta finish it. Yikes.
that's you. Those are the 2 words I would describe season 5 with. Is I enjoyed season 5. There were incredible highs of season 5, but by and large, I was like, this This is just not as good.
It was the Warlords of Draenor
Sure.
of Game of Thrones.
That's an apt
It
comparison.
de-hyped me overall on the series.
Yeah, and so that's Hubert. You're answering my very next question. Based on season 5, where is sort of your hype level or expectations with season 6?
I'm very excited because every hour is just beautiful of that show. You know you're getting incredible writing, incredible acting, incredible visuals, just the total package. Every episode, it just oozes with budget and hype. But I don't know if I'm alone on this. For me personally, it just feels like there aren't any stakes anymore. I'm just not emotionally invested. Like, so many things have happened in that show now where I really don't care what happens to anyone anymore. Like, I'm emotionally checked out. Maybe that's because of season 5, I don't know. Hopefully season 6 can kind of get me back into the high stakes that were the earlier seasons. Like, seasons 1 through 3 were some of the highest stakes I'd ever been a part of in any medium, book, movie, show, whatever. Every episode was like, my whole life depends on this hour. And now it's just like completely disconnected. So,
Oof.
yeah.
Bummer.
Yeah.
Interesting. To kind of bounce off that, I've been rewatching all of the episodes trying to prepare. That's the kind of guy I am.
That's a lot.
And my girlfriend is actually watching it for the first time, so I got her to play Magic the Gathering and watch Game of Thrones all in a week. Yeah, I'm succeeding.
Half-star boyfriend.
Yeah.
Your
I think
relationship
I'm at
is
1 star
peaking
now.
right now.
Yeah.
1-star boyfriend now.
And it's interesting, like, how Daenerys' story has changed so much, because in season 1, there's so much that happens to that character. She's taken from a place she knows. All the stuff happens with her brother. She has weird feelings about Khal Drogo, the Dothraki. So much happens to that character. And I honestly kind of feel like since season 1, it's taken like 2, 3, 4, and 5 for as much to happen in all 4 of those seasons as what happened in season 1. And that really sucks. That's frustrating because there are a lot of moments, specifically with her, where I'm like, they don't know what they're doing with this character.
Yep.
Did you read the books?
I have not read the
Be
book.
glad
I'm
you
a
didn't.
filthy show
Be
watcher.
glad you didn't read the books, Ben, because man, she is in the desert metaphorically and physically. Like, it's
Just languishing, like doing nothing?
There are like whole pages and pages and pages of just like, wow, do
Her
I
just
not
playing
care?
with sand or
there's
something?
There's one storyline particularly that they start to get into in season 6. I'll be like, oh god, I'll see you in a couple episodes somehow. Like, I don't care, because it goes nowhere. It's like,
Right.
here are these people, they do this, and they're gone. You're like, why George? But
Filling pages.
Filling those pages.
It's weird. I think I feel like the show, unfortunately, is going to end up being like 2 shows, because I think they started it with this body of work that was so ready to be adapted, and television was the absolute perfect platform for it. And so I think they like went into it with a whole bunch of crew, like of HBO people being like, okay, yeah, we're like really excited about this. And then you just had like these 4 or 5 showrunners that were just cackling because they're like, this is gonna be sweet because we have the budget, we have the actors, we have we're on HBO, this is gonna be huge. And then they hit this weird midpoint where they were like, okay, well, when's that next book coming out? Mm-hmm. And he's like, oh, well, here's what you know about the ending. And they're like, okay, well, we'll kind of try to steer it in that direction. And I think, again, this is tinfoil hat. Like, I think I have a real strong opinion that there was there was one pivotal meeting where he was like, guys, I'm not going to have it ready. And or based on the way George talked about things, they left and the showrunners were like, gulp, like, we're not going to get it. Like, we're going to finish this show and 2 books are still not going to be released. Mm-hmm. What do we do? And so I think at that point they were like, okay, we need to not do some things that break my heart. Characters that are not in that show. I'm like, Strong Belwas is so good. Like, there's stuff that like they're not even going to cover. Stuff, Ben, that like when that show's over, I'm gonna be like, Ben, I'd like to introduce you to this character, and you're gonna cry because you're gonna be like, oh, they didn't do that. Like, I'm sorry, but they have to if they want to finish the story, their story. That they have to care to what George's doing and what characters he wants to have it wrap up. So I think like what the product of it was this last season where we're like, where are they going with this? And then we're gonna get 6 and 7 and go, oh, they were going there, and then we're gonna read the last 2 books and go, Martin, you're an idiot. What were you like? Why would you hamstring them like this? Like, why would you create this thing that they then have to like copy somehow and then not have them finish it and then have them make it up? It's so weird. It's happened in books before where some guy will step in and finish a story, but in every case, the person's dead. This is like the first case I've ever seen where the guy's alive and well. Well, goes to conventions and shakes hands. Is in movies. You know, it's just having a grand old time. Loving his life.
I don't even
I'm not saying
book.
shame on you. I'm not saying you shouldn't have done that. It is just weird.
Yeah.
It is so bizarre. It's unprecedented.
But I'm always going to take the creator's side, no matter what, with anything. I'll always back Lucas. I'll always back J.K. Rowling. I'll always back George Martin. Like, they invented a world.
Sure.
You know, they have invented this. So, like, however long he takes, like, so be it. But if there was a deal where he said these books will be done by the time we get there, then that's kind of on him. But, like, things happen, you know?
So I feel like sometimes I'm kind of the king of this, shamefully the king of this at Easy Allies, and if I was at Game Trailers, where I would be like, okay, this review is going to be done here, or this retrospective is going to be done here. And when you work on something that you really feel like is yours and you want to be proud of and you care so much about, it always takes at least 10 times longer than what you expected. There's just going to be that one little tiny thing that you're like, no, like, it may not be a big deal to anybody else, but you know, if that exists, it's going to drive you crazy. And kind of extrapolating that feeling, I can't imagine having something like A Song of Fire and Ice that, you know, is your legacy. Like, when George is eventually put in the ground, people are going to be like, yeah, that's the guy that wrote these books. And having that weight on your shoulders, I can imagine for me, maybe it would take me 100 years to finish that story. You know what I mean? Not that that's a great excuse, not that that passes it, but I can at least, like, sort of understand. I don't know. Maybe that seems upsetting to you, Brandon. But Brad, where are you at? Wait.
I have the lowest stakes right now in Game of Thrones.
Okay.
Ever.
Yeah, no stakes.
I'm just like, whatever, dude.
No consequences, no nothing. Nothing matters right now in the show.
I just imagine the two of them in the High Council, and they're like, so, the wall.
Yeah.
What are we going to do about the wall? And both of them are like,
whatever.
It's cool, you know?
No, if I was in the world, the wall is the most interesting part of the show for sure.
For sure.
That's the only place where things are happening. But
So, Brett, is it going to be one of those shows where, like The Walking Dead has kind of turned into me, where it's like, I will watch this, but I'm doing it very passively?
Oh, well, I would never even do that with Walking Dead ever. I hate that universe. I mean, I like the Game of Thrones universe. It's cool. But,
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't a book reader before or anything like that, so I guess I didn't have that long attachment to it. I've been with it for a while.
Yeah.
I've been pretty casual with the series. But, yeah, I mean, I'll finish it. I like the show and everything, but I'm not, like, freaking out about it or anything. Like, I forgot it was even coming out Sunday.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Just like,
its contribution to television cannot be
denied.
And you look at where TV was when season 1 came out, completely different landscape, so much, and not only so much TV, but so much good TV. Whereas when Game of Thrones season 1 came out, it was kind of in a class of its own. It was the top tier of production, of budget, and of story, and of just everything. There was so much mystery. It was just so unique. And, you know, I think, like Ben was saying about last season just kind of stalled. And maybe that was because of that meeting with Martin, and they'd realized they weren't going to finish. So they kind of, like, pulled back on last season. They're like, let's just make a couple episodes and stretch it out into a full season. That's kind of what it felt like.
Huber, I point this specifically at you because I think you might see where I'm coming from. But Brendan, something you said actually made me think of it. Before we started recording, you said Game of Thrones changed the way that you view storytelling.
Yeah.
And that's kind of true for me as well. No matter what happens, no matter if Game of Thrones becomes the worst thing ever, no matter how garbage it gets, I will always say that it's my favorite show until the end of time, forever.
Yeah, I have a super hyperbole Mike Huber statement to make.
Hit
Are
me.
you ready?
Hit me.
Yeah. Are you ready? It's gonna
Yes.
be epic. Game of Thrones is my favorite adaptation of anything ever.
Yeah.
Anything.
Nice.
From comic to film, from book to film, from film to comic.
We got a
Now.
statement.
Whoa.
From TV show
Harry
to
Potter.
book, from
Harry Potter.
Oh, are you kidding? Those movies? Those movies are gutter trash.
Right.
Those movies are gutter trash.
Nope.
Okay, here's the trajectory of those movies. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. I can't even see 6.
Getting a little
And
closer
Can't
there,
even
Brandon.
see it.
And
Oh my God.
seven like peeks up over the table a little bit. Like 7.
All right, Lord of the Rings.
it's pretty good, but I mean, like Return, there's all sorts. Two Towers, there's all sorts. It was deliberate, you know, like there's all sorts of like swing and miss. And
You take creative liberties.
And the thing is, because that's the thing is, you're like, well, I mean, there's all sorts of moments in Game of Thrones that I don't like, and it's like, yeah, but there's 60 hours of the damn thing. So it's like, to me, that's why I look at anything else that I like that someone has adapted from something else, and I'm like, I've never seen it hit so many notes from just one thing. It covers so many bases from just one thing. Like,
Brandon, I want to hug you.
Amanda brought up a really good point. I said this to Amanda one time, and she was like, "You're insane," and I'm like, "No, really." And she's like, "Mary Poppins." And I'm like, "Mary Poppins is great. Mary Poppins is an hour and 20 minutes, and then you're done, and then that's it. You got nowhere else to go."
Well, that's a different way to digest it. The fact that you can digest it in that short amount of time.
You keep watching Mary Poppins on loop over and over and over again, and I'm gonna watch all 5 seasons of Game of Thrones, and we'll see who gets burnt out first.
Mary Poppins is perfection.
It's great, yeah, but it's just like that is, I can't believe they did it. When they announced it, I was like, I can't believe they're doing this. When each season ended, I was like, I can't believe they did that. Like, my expectations were constantly. So I think, yeah, it's like when I look at being, you know, a little fatigued at something like a season 5 of Game of Thrones, it's like, well, they excelled so they pushed it so far that, you know, it's kind of like maybe where George finds himself now, where he's like, I've bit off maybe more than I could chew. I've done such a good job up to this point. You know, it's like going into your 4th Olympics. You're like, I mean, I won 3 golds, but damn, I don't know, 4th time, like.
Do you guys have those things? And if you do, I want you to name them specifically, where they mean so much to you. They've affected you emotionally. They've changed how you viewed something, right? Where, like you were saying, having just watched season 1 of Game of Thrones and having seen it multiple times, like on the 5th viewing, there were scenes or sets or just the way, like when the credits came on screen, there would be moments where my mouth would go, like it would hit me just as hard as it did the first time, and it was astounding. Do you guys have things where they sort of earned so much credit with you? And World of Warcraft is another one of these things for me, where you did so much to me personally that no matter where you go, no matter what happens, no matter how you abuse me, I'll be there. I will see it through to the end.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yes.
Star Wars.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
real easy.
It's a good example.
I'll probably be a James Cameron apologist for the rest of my
too.
life, especially because Avatar is like in the news a lot now, and everyone's just like, yeah, that Avatar film, screw that Avatar film, and I'm like, hold on, just a second, okay. Even with episode 1, it's like, yeah, episode 1, it's like there are parts of episode 1 that are okay. You know, like there are little flashes here and there of not crap. Okay, you know, like
Only right angles, pod race.
but
Potter's
just the design of Darth Maul. You know, like, there's just like cool stuff going on. A lot of the costumes are incredible. The sound effects are amazing. The score is incredible. Like,
Why don't you talk to me about Attack of the Clones?
right? Yeah. But
Jesus Christ, that fucking
My
movie.
least favorite film of all time is Attack of the Clones.
Of all time.
Of all time, show me any not like I'm sure I would like Attack of the Clones more than Sharknado. So I guess Attack of the Clones is my least favorite film of all time that I care about. How about that?
Sure.
Like almost unwatchable. I can't take it.
Like, how many times have you and me quoted the prequel movies like at GT? Are you an angel? We're just like,
because you remember, because the bad stuff is more memorable.
Yeah,
you know, it's
totally.
like, James Cameron apologist for sure. Star Wars definitely. Disney probably across the board. Like Disney's done some horrible things to their employees and other people throughout the years. But I'll be a sucker till I die.
Guys, that was wonderful. That was beautiful. That's exactly how I was hoping that segment would go. But it's time to move on to our last segment, and honestly, my favorite segment. So we're going to get a little sultry. We're going to get a little bit intimate. Ooh. We're going to move on to emails.
Nice. We can get real close on the mics.
Real close. Get real close.
Late night radio.
Don't spit though. We gotta use these mics for
good.
more things. Our first email comes in
This pop screen's delicious.
from Luke, and the subject is just frame trap. I like it. Simple
Cool.
to the point. Hi guys.
Hi.
My name is Luke.
Hi, Luke.
And my question is,
Luke Skywalker.
has there ever been a game you really wanted to like, but no matter how hard you tried, you just couldn't?
Tenchu 4.
Final Fantasy VII.
Oh!
Sorry.
Wait.
I know,
call
I've had this
bullshit.
conversation
I call
with you
bullshit.
so many times.
You've never liked Final Fantasy VII. Both of you.
I
Never.
I respect Final Fantasy VII. I think Final Fantasy VII is a tremendous achievement for this industry. It is a watershed moment. If I was doing a documentary series in the entirety of video games, it would get a major chunk. Awesome. Everyone involved, the music, great job. I wouldn't want to play it.
Here's the thing, Jones.
I wouldn't enjoy it.
totally
I would do it
respect
for-
if you don't like it.
You'd have to pay me.
But you've never gone that far in the game, from what you've told me.
Right.
If you finish the game, then I'd be like, okay, that's fine. But you never.
I never did.
I think that's a fair point, Brad.
Finish a 40-hour. Just finish the 40-hour
I know, I
first,
understand.
and then we'll talk.
I'm not here to crucify you, but I do think it's a good point.
Just put in 38 more hours, and then then we can have a conversation about it.
Hubert, you've never, not even in 1997, you didn't like Final Fantasy VII.
I like the motorcycle.
I don't think you
cool.
played it.
That is the most Huber answer that ever could be.
You played it way
It
later.
took me a long time to finish that game. I beat that only a couple years ago.
Yeah, it came way
four
later.
years ago.
What didn't you like?
I
Just
I
didn't
missed
click?
the boat. I missed the boat.
Okay, all right, I get that.
Nothing. I don't hate it. Nothing against it.
Right.
Just not passionate about it. So,
It's a fair point.
to better
fair
answer
point.
the question, Resident Evil 6. I tried to like. And
Did you? Was it so? Sometimes when there are
couldn't
games that
like
I try to like that I'm excited about that I end up not liking. I have that phase where I'm like, no, but this is good, and I
Yeah.
like throw out these weak things where deep in my heart I know it's just trash. Did that happen to you with Resident Evil 6 where you're like, no, this is kind of cool?
I knew pretty early. Brad was kind of hanging on when we first played through with the Leon campaign. He was kind of talking me into it, like, "Oh, these environments is cool.
It's like a cool graveyard.
Cool graveyard." By the time Chapter 4 of Leon rolls around, when you get to China, checked.
Yeah,
Checked out. And then there was the hope of maybe Chris's campaign will be good. That entire campaign is the worst part of the game. And then the whole time it's okay, maybe Jake's melee combat, nemesis thing chasing you down, Sherry Birkin returns, no.
Hey,
and it was okay, Ada's campaign, single player. You play as Ada. It's not even co-op. They patched that in later. It was okay, single player. Maybe no.
Hyperbole City here. I believe
What's
this
up?
in my soul. Yeah.
You
better
lose yourself.
The Jake campaign of Resident Evil 6 is one of the worst sequences in a video game that I've ever played.
Chris, I think, is even worse looking
Chris,
now.
okay,
It's
you might be
so
right. You might
bad.
be right. Chris is so bad.
It's so bad.
The slide was cool, though.
The slide was cool.
The playground was cool, and that was about it.
It's just the most boring encounters.
It has no identity.
It
is-
doesn't. Resident Evil 4 and 5 put you in these really cool, balanced, mathematically sound situations where there's so many ways to get in and so many ways to get up, and just all the gears are working here. And Resident Evil 6 puts you in a square so many times. You're just in a square and people are just coming over the railing, or you will be inside in a little area and it'll just be a grid where a couple guys come in. Resident Evil 4 and 5, you had to move around so much. There's so much movement in those games, especially with co-op. You guys are kind of splitting
You're
up.
not playing it right.
And Resident
And
Evil
even
5.
in 5 too,
Yeah.
the crazy executioner guys will come. He'll hunt someone down, and then that person will get separated. They separate you by throwing these tough monsters at you. That guy will go away, and I'll be alone in the corner and be oh my god, I'm overwhelmed. Brad's off dealing with him, and I'm in this corner, and I'm running low on health, and it's because they know it's okay, well, it's co-op. If you stick together, you're good. You can revive each other. Resident Evil 4 obviously single player, but 5 you can't really do that. And 6, the entire time, we are just standing there together, just
Or mashing that melee
I'm
button.
kind of rolling
Yeah.
around sometimes just for shits
just
and
for
giggles.
shits and giggles,
Yeah.
jumping around, crawling forward, shooting this.
doing Vanquish slides and stuff.
Our next email.
Moving on.
You took the words right out of my mouth about Resident Evil 5, by the way. That game is better than a lot of people give it credit for.
Payoff.
Daniel says, "Hi, Easy Allies. I'm Daniel, and I had a question for the group regarding game mechanics. Do you think game mechanics should be treated on the same level as story elements with regards to spoilers? I'm thinking something along the lines of Infamous Second Son, where Sucker Punch purposefully held back and requested reviewers not mention 2 of the 4 powers in reviews and trailers. Do you think game if a developer or publisher or some reviewer tells you about a game mechanic, do you think that's later in the game? Maybe it doesn't appear until like the last third. Do you think that's a spoiler?
Sure, I'll give an example. Not knowing the name of the game, there was a shmup that just came out where like you could transform into like a Gundam thing, and
Galaxy.
nobody knew that.
Galaxy.
Galaxy.
I think people knew that.
Well, yeah, but we found out like 3 weeks before the game came out or something, like right at the end.
That
and,
would have
like,
been cool surprise.
That
I
was
guess.
a headline. Then all of a sudden we were talking about that game, and we weren't talking about that game. So I think it's less about. I see it happening less when it comes to like that'll spoil the creative integrity of the game that we're trying to make, and more we just want another headline. Please let us have another headline. You know, we just want another reason for people to talk about our game, something they didn't know, some extra characters, something, some twist.
It worked. Got me.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it's Robotech even more now?
Yeah, that's the thing. I guess is
Robotech. I
sometimes
said Gundam when I meant Robotech.
Works, right?
That was
Close enough.
I'm saying in Ben's presence. I apologize.
It's all right. I've never watched Robotech.
What?
And I have. How
Yeah.
about that? Wow.
Jones, my boy.
Huber.
Ben, you make me sick.
You are very big on spoilers, but you like, as you said, self-proclaimed lore whore.
Yeah.
If somebody tells you about a mechanic, right? Like, let's say there's some hidden Dark Souls mechanic that would you want that to be a surprise, or do you care if they talk about it?
I think it's a case-to-case basis. The like beast mechanic in Bloodborne, that whole rumor, right? That never panned out, right? You could never turn into a...
They changed it kind of in the DLC, but not how we expected.
No. What you think it's
Yeah.
going to be, it never ends up becoming.
Correct.
But like some of the weapon arts, I guess, if people told me, I'd be a little bummed out.
But it's nowhere near as sensitive, it sounds like, as lore.
Yeah. But for really specific games like Phantom Pain and Final Fantasy 15, like I have been media blackout because I don't even want to know the mechanics.
Gotcha.
Because, you know, it's like you're being born, and that's
It's
why
like
I
you're
never,
being born? Is that
that's
what
why I
you
never
said?
played Duska, whatever
Duska.
you call it, is because taking your first steps in a world is a magical moment for me.
I'm watching the 15 TV spot, and all the IGN quote goes by the game. So I'm going, like being born. Like Huber.
Just experiencing those first steps, and the first time you kill someone in Demon Souls, or the first brick you bash someone's head in with in Last of Us. It's powerful. It means something to me.
I got to keep that for a Tuesday night stream and just drop, It's like, wow, that level was a good level. Like, yeah, it's like being born, though.
Yeah.
When you said that and I asked you to repeat it, I wasn't sure if that's actually what you said. It wasn't a joke.
Just so many
Wait, it's
visuals.
like-
the doctor holding up the bundle
Yeah.
of his Huber. Like, a lot just happened in my
And
brain.
you just said it like you didn't really think about it. You didn't have to come up with that. You're like, no, it's like being born. Wow. Oh, that's amazing. Okay. Next email. This email is from Josh. Hey guys, I was wondering what game each of you love that you don't think gets enough love of, or if it's part of a series, is overshadowed by others. For example, I love Mega Man 4, and not only is Mega Man overshadowed by games like Mario and Zelda on NES, but only Mega Man 2 ever gets love. That's not totally
That's not true.
But I get where he's coming from. Also, Final Fantasy 9 is my favorite. This is why I picked your email, sir. In the series, but 7 gets all the credit, and people don't want to give 9 a chance.
That's not true either. I don't agree with that.
Yeah, that's not true either. But I think the general sentiment is there a game in a series or a game in general that you think gets overshadowed by other things?
Big time.
Whoa!
Let's hear it, Huber. Resident Evil 3 Nemesis
Definitely. Great example.
gets overshadowed by Resident Evil 1, Resident Evil Remake, and Resident Evil 2, and obviously Resident Evil 4. 3, it was originally just supposed to be Resident Evil Nemesis. It wasn't supposed to be 3. Capcom wanted to sell more copies, so they said slap a 3 on there. So it in theory, it is kind of a side tale of Resident Evil 2, and there's only one protagonist, and there's not multiple scenarios, so it is a little bit of a smaller game, but definitely gets overshadowed.
We got any other answers?
I can do a 6 rant. I mean, not
Wait a
to,
minute.
not to dump on 7.
Wait a
Sure,
minute.
yeah.
Six
Let's
six
hear it.
overshadowed?
6 is not overshadowed.
I will. Okay.
In comparison to 7.
Did 6 get
It
Crisis
didn't have as
Core?
big an impact.
Did
No,
6
that's for
get
sure.
Advent Children? Did 6 get the mobile phone game, like variant
Here's the thing,
of
though.
multiple series?
I think what this
Come
this emailer is
Yeah.
saying is
Is 6 getting a remake?
the reason
Is it, like-
7 got all that stuff is because it made all that money, right?
Right.
Where I think this person is saying just sort of like
Creatively.
general
people
consensus.
don't think
from
it's a
the-
good game. It's not
Right.
that people aren't talking about
People
it. Right. They actively say that's a
love
bad
6.
game.
Love
Oh, of course.
6. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it's like most people probably say 6 is their favorite. I would think.
Sure.
Most hardcore fans would say that.
I get what you're saying, though.
when Square like sold out with a lot of other franchises, I was like when 4 came to like 3DS for the second time, I was like,
Right. Okay, that's a good point.
can we with polygons on DS? Can we get a 6,
Game
please?
Boy
That'd be
Advance
rad. Yeah, but get after everything else. You know, it was just like there were lots of other
know.
stuff happened for the other series.
I would love more 6.
More to the
or
point. I
6.
think. Yeah. Creatively, I don't know. I can't think of something. No, normally, all the games that I think are cool that nobody else likes, I'm like, fair enough. Like, I'm a weirdo. I'll take it.
Oh, we thought Tenchu.
Disney Infinity. No,
We thought Tenchu Z was cool, even though we know it's not great.
Tenchu Z is not cool.
Oh, I thought we liked it.
Tenchu
I
Z
like
is
it.
not cool. Tenchu is cool.
Right.
Any
No,
kind
that
of
was our
Tenchu,
guilty
yeah.
pleasure of Tenchu Z.
I think Metroid Prime 2 and 3 definitely get overshadowed by 1.
Especially 2, probably.
I don't think they're as good, but I think they're still really, really, really great games, by and large, that just don't seem to get any love. Like, everybody's like, why don't you make it like Metroid Prime 1 or Super Metroid? And I don't know. I think Retro did great work with 2 and 3 in a lot of ways, and I think those should get more love. Next question. Huber, I gotta say something before I read this email. All of the weird... I guess it's the only way to say it. All of the weird emails that are specifically addressed to somebody are always specifically addressed to you. 100% of the time. I mean, we've only done two episodes.
You
but
already
that's,
have your own show, Huber. I don't know what.
That's true. So the subject for this email: only address this question if Huber is on the podcast. This is from Greg. He says, "Okay, so this isn't a hard-hitting question about video games, but it's something I just have to know. What is Michael Huber like when he's drunk?"
That's more of a question
That's
for
a
me.
question for Brad Ellis, isn't it?
Take it away,
Brad.
So, Michael Huber, known as Close Talker in some ways. You guys think he talks close to you now? He'll face with you right here when he's talking to you. Okay. Huber drunk is like Huber now cranked up like 8 levels, way louder, way more out of control. Like he will just start screaming about things. He's very clumsy also. I've seen him
I was just gonna
fall
say,
in-
yeah, I imagine like more slurring, more.
I've seen him fall into bushes multiple times.
I would imagine it would be like the typical Huber rant, except he just stops. You know, like,
And stares
are you
at
going
you.
to say, what was I talking about? You know, like,
No, it just
You're
keeps
forgetting
going.
You're
just
forgetting
it
the
doesn't
grab.
stop.
Yeah, okay.
You want it to stop.
So Huber grabs everyone too, yeah.
Right.
Like it's like an eagle talon just going.
Yeah.
Like
No, I remember I think that was the first E3 was when I worked like most closely with Huber on a project, and I remember it was just like shoulders over and over. I would just be sitting at a desk and just like, I'm like, oh, Willie, oh, it's Huber. Woo!
yeah, it's ramped
What's
up
up?
big time.
Yeah.
Brad, thank you for doing that. That story is one of my favorite moments on the podcast so far. Next email comes from, I'm going to mispronounce this name, Hassanine. I'm sorry, man. That's the best I can do. It says walkthroughs. This was a good email. I'm not making fun of you. I'm just terrible at pronunciation. How do you feel about playing games with walkthroughs? I used to feel guilty, but now I'm okay with it. I get to play more games this way because I finish them faster. I also get to see everything a game has to offer and all the secrets. What does the panel think? Should I be ashamed of my words and deeds?
No. I am 100% against walkthroughs. The last guide I got was Dragon Quest VIII after I beat it to like get all the mini medals. I'm totally against walkthroughs, but I've what did I just play? I played Persona 4 on easy. Yeah, he's pissed. Played Persona 4 on easy.
It's not a hard game.
I know. But I put the game on easy, and it was this liberating feeling. It was just, I could go through it at my own pace, and I wasn't stressed out. And that has kind of changed my mind on difficulty and walkthroughs as well. That's kind of the same thing where, you know, games shouldn't be stressing you out. You shouldn't be losing sleep over them. It shouldn't be a chore. You should not be angry, you know, and if using a guide or toning the difficulty down relieves that stress, I'm all for it.
I don't agree that games shouldn't ever make you angry, but I do agree. Like, a video game is something you bought, right? Mm-hmm. Whatever the game is telling you, whatever your friends are telling you, whatever your mother is telling you, it doesn't matter where this input is coming from. It's your thing. Mm-hmm. Do with it whatever you want. Yeah. Like, you know, as long as it's not illegal, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with that. Play how you want to play. But the only time I've gotten upset about someone playing a game the way I didn't like was Kyle Bossman playing Bloodborne with podcasts.
Oh, that's not what I thought you were going to say.
What? Do you have another Kyle Bossman story?
I do. Not to throw Kyle under the bus.
I love that naturally it would involve Kyle.
Always.
I'm assuming your other horrible story also involves Kyle Botsman.
So people playing The Witness and like looking up solutions,
Oh
I guess
my
it doesn't.
gosh.
I guess it doesn't really bother me that much. But if you're gonna like go through the effort of getting the platinum trophy, which is like kind of a point of pride. Maybe not everybody views it that way. Maybe I'm alone in that. But you're saying like I achieved this thing. But if you achieve that thing through cheating, then that thing doesn't matter. And it's just.
But frustrating you was the thing Kyle achieved.
Yes,
Yeah,
he
that was
did.
the
So
issue.
maybe he
got
wins in the end.
So,
I guess
yeah,
maybe
he
he
did.
wins in the end.
When all of you were yelling at him and he was in the corner of the room, like smiling smug, like you could see it in his vision, like the little trophy popped up.
Yeah.
Pissed off your colleagues.
I wonder what kind of game.
I don't
Kyle
ask
Botsman-
much of that guy, but come on, man.
Playing Bloodborne with the podcast is
Especially
offensive.
like if
You're
someone
right,
else does
yeah.
it, it's whatever, it's fine. But Kyle Bossman doing it,
Just like sitting there listening to like This
his-
American Life while
just
slaying the blood-starved beast, like fuck off, come on.
Kyle
Next,
should know better.
whoa, my voice there. Sorry, everybody, still going through puberty. Our next email comes in our next email comes in from Jordan. He says, "Hi Ben, thank you. My question is about how much a game's series legacy should influence the way games are reviewed. Should the games that came before a new release be considered at all when a review occurs, or should each be judged on its own merits? A specific example, I don't want to read these specific examples.
It's Ratchet and Clank.
No. It's not. It has nothing to do with us.
Okay.
Tears fired up
yeah.
already.
Wow, yeah.
I'm not going to read the rest of the
Whoa.
email, but I think Huber knows where this is going. Whoever would like to take it away, take it away.
Well, when Huber first reviewed
How do I even want to address this? I think so. I think it should be taken into account because as a sequel, like a sequel should be made to build off of what came before it, or to tell a different story, or to do something with that name, not just here's a game with the franchise's name on it. Like it should bring something new or fresh or a different perspective on the franchise. That being said, if it doesn't, but it's still a great game on its own, then that should also be taken into account. So
Absolutely.
I think it's kind of like both sides. Like, Resident Evil 4 does both. It completely took the franchise in a new direction, and on its own, it's an absolutely incredible game.
I think we should have a Resident Evil counter every time you're on the podcast.
Yes. Ratchet and Clank reboot didn't take the franchise in a new direction at all, but on its own, that game is so good and so solid. So it does one of the two. So I definitely think it should be. Uncharted 3 got a ton of criticism because it didn't change much from Uncharted 2.
Huber, I don't know if you agree with this, and you guys, you've all had some involvement with reviews. There's sort of this online sentiment I see sometimes where people are like, all reviews should be totally objective.
Mm-hmm.
Like you should be like, this is how good the graphics are, this is how good, like all this stuff. And, like this person is suggesting perhaps like, only view a game on its own merits. But two things, games don't exist in vacuums. You can't just, no matter how hard you try, when you're playing Dark Souls 3 or the reboot of Ratchet & Clank, you can't will into existence that this thing exists on its own. You just can't do that. Your brain cannot go through gymnastics enough times to make that work. So when you are reviewing games, you're going to come into it some way. If you've never played, if this is the 10th of the series and you've never played entries in the series, that's going to affect your review no matter what. And people can, listen to you or not based on that experience, but that's how reviews work. The people out there that just want fucking numbers, just go to Metacritic. That's what it's there for. If you want somebody's opinion, then read or watch a review.
I want an F-bomb counter because I want to know what brings Ben to drop the F-bomb. I think that's only 2 for the entire podcast, but it's interesting.
Brandon, anytime we talk about reviews, and you know this based on how many times we talk about reviews, if we talk about reviews, I will be talking about F-bombs, yeah.
Yeah, I hope all reviews never become any one thing. You know,
Yeah.
it's like that. I love weird reviews. It's like, we're going to eat a hot pepper in review games. Like, yeah, those are great. Never change, you know, like just do that the way you do that. And then that will always exist. If I, you know, am not so serious about reviews and I want to get my game news that way, then like, that's great. Meta information is something that's very, very important to me. Like I love it when I see an episode of a show that's based on a comic and I'm like, yeah, I didn't read the comic. And that person's like, well, I did. Did you know this? I'm like, I didn't. That's cool. That poster in the background was a reference to that character. Like, that's neat. It frustrates me when I'll go to somebody and I'm like, hey, did you know this about this thing that you enjoyed? If they're like, oh, I didn't know that, that doesn't mean anything to me. It's like, that's fine. But if the person's like, that's not important, that pisses me off. Because I'm like, well, it is because it is a part of it. Like, there were 8 Ratchet and Clank games before this new Ratchet and Clank. If that doesn't concern you, that's fine. Then you can score the game however you want to score it, because I want your raw experience with this game. Like me with Pokemon. Like we joked I might, you know, review Pokemon Red when I'm done with this game, because I'm like, I've prepared more than any review I ever have. I might as well just do it and give the game a score. But it's like, I would not think that my score is official at all, because I have this totally weird, skew 37-year-old man who's never played Pokemon before.
I didn't know that was your age. That's interesting.
Well, there you go. I probably shouldn't out of myself. I'm 29, but it just frustrates me when it's like, oh, there's an interesting story behind there, and people are like, that story doesn't belong with that. It's like, it does. You can't unstick that from that thing. It's attached to it. The meaning of that word, the other, you know, thing that actor was in that I can't stop thinking about seeing them in another role. You know, it's like, so yeah, it's like, if you choose to ignore it, fine. But if you say that it has no importance, then that's frustrating. So,
Brandon, I think that was very
that's my
well
weirdo
said.
take.
Yeah, I think that was a good point.
I was thinking of the Batman games when you're kind of like talking about all that. Because they do all kind of link together.
And if you know, if you're like, oh yeah, Ra's al Ghul, that guy was weird. Like, I'm not gonna like chew your head off, being like, you have to know who that is. But if you do want to know, yeah, I'll go on for hours and point out all sorts of fun stuff and directions they took that character. Yeah. But yeah, I know that sounds like I'm disagreeing with you, Huber, but it's just I didn't read your script. I was surprised when I saw your score, but I didn't read your script and was like, what? He's wrong. It was like, whoa, I wasn't there for that experience that happened to him. You know, like, I thought we all have the new 5-star system, so I'm just waiting for that first 5-star. And it's just like, you know, Huber's playing a Remedy game. I'm like, oh no. And they're like, oh, that wasn't 5 stars. And just like, no, he's playing Ratchet. Oh God. And they're like, whoa, wow, look at that score.
Pump the brakes.
You know, and I didn't read the script and was like, that's unfounded. I was like, oh, that's how he feels. Okay. If this Ratchet is that important to me, I will move on to another review and see what that person thought. I'm not gonna like poke fingers like, wrong.
Our next email comes in from Christopher, and not all of our emails are going to be questions. Sometimes somebody might just say something that I think is amusing, and I thought this was highly amusing. Christopher says, "Hey allies, I just want to share an interesting incident that occurred while I was listening to the first episode. I live in Tokyo, and my Korean girlfriend recently moved in with me. Our common language is Japanese. During the Hottake segment, you guys begin pronouncing it as Hottake. Cue girlfriend quizzically saying, Hotate, Japanese for scallop, and me awkwardly trying to explain in Japanese what a hot take was. Just the visuals that this made me think of it's adorable. So, not a lot to say, but
it's fine.
Great stuff. Our next email comes in from Blaine, who I've known for a long time and has followed Game Trailers and Easy Allies for a very, very, very good long while, so I appreciate that. Blaine says, hey Allies, how important is the integrity of a favorite gaming franchise's lore/story to you? For example, I love Metroid and Metal Gear, but I think other M and Phantom Pain did horrible things to their respective canons. My disdain for these titles, more so the former, doesn't keep me up at night, but if we got into it, you'd think it does. On the previous episode, you briefly mentioned player expectation and entitlement when fans talk about where a character or series should go. I think as a part of an audience and receivers of media, some fans do have a better grasp on their beloved franchises than the creator, who may be continuing a series for a myriad of reasons, good or bad, and are so deep in what they've created. Their perspective cannot be objective, fresh, or even accurate. What do you think?
Is that Resident Evil counter still going?
No, I don't want to stop you from talking. I just thought it was funny. Go for it. Hit me.
Resident Evil 6. It's super important, but and Metal Gear. It's depends how invested and how long I'm invested in a franchise. Resident Evil Metal Gear came out in '98. That's like 20 years of a continual story. So, if I'm attached to a franchise for that long, it is very important. Because it's continual. Whereas like Zelda, Zelda timeline, whatever. But to me, every Zelda game is its own thing and different. So, I'm not really concerned. It's just a matter of how long a continuity is going for, and if I'm there for it all. If I were to jump into, I can't think of like a currently long-running franchise. But say I got into Metal Gear like late, maybe I wouldn't be as attached. But like being in Metal Gear and being in Resident Evil from the beginning, extremely, extremely important.
The only thing I don't like is, obviously, to me, I think story and lore and all that stuff is super important, and I get attached to those things. But I think my biggest disappointments, not just with games, but with any media, is when I feel like the creator is no longer telling the story that they want to tell. They're catering to fan expectations. And when I feel like that's happening, when I feel like these pieces are sort of moving on their own and then it just ends, I'm gutted. To me, that is the greatest tragedy of all. And so I would rather have a series go in a totally wild direction that I didn't approve of, that wasn't consistent with what they had established before, than feel like they were just sort of phoning it in.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, yeah. I love this series, and I'm glad the creator stuck to it, but it's fucking out of control. It's Kingdom Hearts, obviously.
Yeah.
What? I've played those games 30 times and I still forget so much in those games. But I'm glad he's sticking with his vision.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely feels super Nomura, right?
Yeah, it does. And it's very unique, so whatever. Get weird.
As much, shit as I can throw at Kingdom Hearts, Kingdom Hearts is not a series where I'm like, they better get it right. I have high expectations on that story.
I think for as long as those games have gone on, you're just like, whatever, dude. I'm just going for the ride. But the story is important to me in those. I do like them a lot, but I know what to expect to some extent. Time travel nonsense and all this.
Xehanort.
See, I don't know what to expect at all. So the fact that you were at a point where you can expect certain things, I think that's a pretty good achievement.
Just really quick, just weigh on it.
Hit me.
I don't so much hate like a game will come out that I'm like, oh, that's just a stain on this franchise that I love. Oh, not Liberty City Stories, but like Vice City Stories is so bad it just ruins GTA. But I hate after the fact when like something's retconned and a developer just kind of pretends like something doesn't exist. They were just like, oh yeah, we didn't make that. It's like, yeah, you did. You made it. Own up to it. Like if you want to pull a Disney and like buy Star Wars and be like, yeah, this expanded, didn't happen. We're not like deleting it. We're gonna still sell these books. We're just gonna call it something different. Then like, oh, okay. As long as you identify as you're like Metal Gear Acid, didn't happen. However you feel about it, if you like those games, cool. But Acid 1 and 2, not in the timeline. Those are something weird, separate that we did. Just so you have the same frame of reference on that weird thing you did as I did. But if like whenever you treat something or you're like, oh no, coded's real important. You're like, it's not. But thanks. There's like one thing you need to glean from coded, but like that's the one. That's one with Jiminy, right? Where he does the bit. Man, I've never
Well, great thing is you don't gotta play it anymore. You can just watch it.
I know way more about that series.
I hate that game.
It's like those little beads in Inside Out that just go around the memory thing, just sucking up all the memories you don't need. I just keep trying to push them into the Kingdom Hearts section, like just suck it all up. I don't need it, but it's all in there.
Our last email comes in from Jason. He says, the subject is, Hottake sounds like a mushroom. I was wondering, since the panel is playing a lot of games, are there any games that got completely off the radar either because of bad reviews or got no advertisement, or you wish that people talked about it more? And then, sort of two pieces of this. Were there any games that were either completely off the radar for you, for whatever reason, and then once you played them, they were magical to you? Like they sort of just came out of nowhere, you sort of played incidentally, and just completely consumed you?
I know one for you immediately.
Dying Light.
Yep.
Dying Light. Jones gave the game a bad review. Granted, that was the first version of the game. It's now enhanced.
It would have gotten 3.5 stars with our corn. I think I gave it a 6.8.
Yeah.
Because I really wanted to give it a 7, but it just,
And there was no HUD. You're kind of like, and you love open world games. So I was like, well, if he's giving
zombie
it,
too, like.
Yeah. So kind of killed the hype, and then the enhanced edition came out, and I finally got to play it, and I'm sure
that's an excellent time to play that game. I'm sure, especially because they have like vehicles now and all the stuff they added. I'm like, I bet that game's a blast now. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one.
I've got one. Deadly Premonition.
Ooh.
So I read a lot of reviews, and I take them seriously, I guess, because it's what I do too. And Deadly Premonition got like a 2.5 on IGN. And I still think it's like a 6, like a 7. I'll be like, oh, whatever, I'm interested in it anyway.
Yeah.
Star Fox Zero is kind of that way, where I don't care. I still really want to play it. But when you give something a 2, right? Like that's saying something. That's making a statement. And Deadly Premonition is one of the most magical games I've ever played. And I would never trade that time for anything. It's beautiful.
I don't know. This is unfair because I can't remember the time and place where I was at, but I remember hearing a lot of negativity towards Alan Wake. And I remember I finished that and was like, that's what I wanted that to be.
Yeah.
That was wonderful. I couldn't tell you what the hell just happened, but like the ending was a big ball of light and the dock and
some water,
some flashlights flying around, but whatever. Yeah, cool.
It's not a lake; it's an ocean.
But
is a terrible line.
But that world, that forest, that trip you take.
Those
that
environments,
that point A and all those points on the way to B in that game is very different. It's really hard for me in my video game experience to point at another game that does the things that Alan Wake does. And I heard so much negativity about that game before I played it.
It's Remedy games, man.
And I probably went in with just the right amount of low expectations to kind of to be kind of intimidated the first time a tractor was like, and I'm like, whoa, what, like. That tractor's flying at me. What's happening? Creepy game.
I'm so glad we're on the same page because, Alan Wake is a
I wish we disagreed more. Honestly, that was probably my major disappointment in the podcast
I think
today.
Alan Wake is okay.
There's just a lot of handshaking. There's a lot of
I'm a writer.
A lot of hugs. I don't know. Too much love and respect on this podcast.
I mean, the thing is, that's why I want to get Ian on, right? Because then
we need
really get
no Ian, no Kyle.
disagreements.
Oh,
yeah.
Kyle hates Alan Wake.
See, that's the thing.
He hates it.
Yeah.
Whew.
You're right, though. We do need to disagree more. It's a good point. That's it, everybody. Do we have any closing thoughts? Anything?
I got a closing thought. I love this podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like the kid who comes home from school and gives a report, and it's like, no, they like it. They pay attention.
I love it because it's like I think if you're I'm looking forward to you hosting something like this and getting better at it and learning know really what you want the show to be over time. But it's fun because I feel like the podcast always made sense to me. I remember we were like lots of opinions came around because we were like, what is the second podcast going to be? And I always had like a real clear vision, and I think it's like got to that point, not vision because it sounds like it was my idea, but like a concept of what I thought we could do with a second podcast is because there's lots of times when Kyle would like bring something up on the Easy Allies podcast and previously on GT Time where I was like, oh, I have it. No, and that's fine. Like I don't want to push the conversation farther than it needs to be because we should probably wrap this up in time, and we have like a very strict schedule. And this is fun because like you'll ask a question, like I didn't think on a podcast I could go on and on and on about things like that. Like questions are my favorite part because it's like they'll ask a question. I'm like, this is the type of crap that we do when we're not working, that we do, that we need to do less of because we need to be working more. So to do it and work at the same time is like, yay.
It's awesome. The original intent behind this podcast, and it's definitely what it's turned into, is, and you would get rightfully upset, and you should have been because we were being super not productive, but we would just sit there at our desks at GT and have conversations like this like all day, and we wanted to turn that into something.
And I'm a total hypocrite too, though, because like you would be like mid conversation, you're like, well, think about Killing Joke, and I would just like walk in the room. I'm like, no, listen here. Like,
yeah, that's true. I did.
It's always funny, like what would push me, like,
right? Yeah, absolutely.
I'm coming in.
Absolutely. But that's
yeah.
Jones, it means a lot to have you say that. I appreciate it.
I love it. Yeah.
It's all feel good vibes. Thank you. Sorry. See, I'm really bad at closing.
I'm not in a rush to add anything to my schedule, but I enjoy this. That's what I was saying. I was like, oh no, another show.
Quick shout out to Davis from Warp Zone. Because he would love when we would talk about games at our desks. Like, you notice he would come out all the time.
Good man.
So what are you guys talking about?
Yeah. He's like, hey, what's going on?
He would always bring up his Game Boy printer, and I thought that guy was pretty cool.
It's legit. If you got a Game Boy printer, legit.
Yeah, you're all right.
Ben, please end your podcast.
Definitely. This is the end of Frame Trap, and we always end Frame Trap in the exact same way. with a Hottake.